Chapter 1797. 1797 was high and mighty. All beings of the transcendental continent, worship me. A vast majesty came out of the mouth of the god of the dragon race. He was the true god of the dragon race, the true god of the dragon race. He said, all beings worship me. It was filled with boundless power. Below, all the shocked people couldn't help but kneel on the ground and worship the dragon god. It was as if the voice of the dragon god was filled with irresistible power. Roar. The dragon god raised his divine kingdom, and when he saw this scene, his face revealed an excited roar. At this moment, a trace of joy rose in everyone's hearts, as if they were happy for the dragon god. Every move and action affected everyone's soul. This caused some experts to feel their souls and bodies change involuntarily, and their faces were filled with shock. God was high and mighty. God was unstoppable. We pay our respects to the dragon god. We will spread the image of Lord Dragon God across the entire transcendental continent for billions of living beings to worship. At the dragon race and the Draconid Empire, a group of experts shouted excitedly. From now on, the dragon race will become a race of gods on the transcendental continent. The dragon god looked at the dragon race and directly announced, one of the gods. All the members of the dragon race were excited. The one and only race with a true god on the continent. The Dragonman Empire, you are my people, and I will protect you. The entire continent will be ruled by you, and you will be the nobles of the extraordinary continent. The dragon god looked in the direction of the Dragonman Empire. Thank you, dragon god. Thank you, dragon god. The son of the dragon and all the experts of the Draconid Empire revealed extremely excited expressions. Apart from the ocean being ruled by them, they would also become the nobles of the entire continent. People above people. All creatures of the Aoshan Empire will be reduced to slaves. Creatures of other factions will become ordinary civilians. The dragon god continued to announce. He was high and mighty, and he set the rules of the entire Transcendence continent. This demoted all of us from the Aoshan Empire to slaves. The original citizens of the Dragonman Empire are nobles, the citizens of the Aoshan Empire are slaves, and we are commoners. The dragon god actually set the rules. Slaves, slaves. When everyone heard the dragon god's words, their bodies trembled violently. Especially the people of the Aoshan Empire, all of their faces were extremely pale. They had been demoted to slaves. Becoming the slaves of the entire continent, this was simply an incomparable humiliation. But what could they do? Oh God, the one who set the rules was the only true God of the Transcendence continent. What could they use to resist God? Quickly thank the dragon god for his grace. An elder of the dragon clan looked at the silent people and shouted loudly. A powerful aura pressed down, making the faces of the people kneeling on the ground extremely ugly. The dragon clan was the god clan, and the Draconids of the Draconid Empire were the nobles. The rest of the people would be just like slaves. In the future, the dragon clan and the Draconid Empire would rule the world, and no one in the world would dare to resist them. They could imagine that in the next 100,000 years at least, they would crawl and survive. Roar, roar. At this moment, 9 roars came from afar. The sudden roar made everyone slightly stunned. Even the dragon race and the dragon god looked towards the source of the sound. Crash. The dragon god flapped his wings and flew to the top of the dragonfire lotus. His pair of eyes seemed to be able to see through the world. When he saw the figures described by his subordinates, he narrowed his eyes slightly. He looked down at the arrival of the forces in front of him from above. Little Xian, just now, there was a phenomenon of the heaven and earth within a radius of more than 100,000 kilometers. There was also a vast sound. What on earth happened? At this moment, at a spot 100 kilometers away from the peak of the Aotian mountain, Wang Xian and the members of the Dragon Palace rushed over. Just now, they had also witnessed the extremely powerful heaven and earth metamorphosis. The group of girls were filled with shock. I don't know. It must be related to the peak of the Aotian mountain. Wang Xian was deep in thought. When he recalled the heaven and earth phenomenon and the rumbling thunder just now, his eyes sparkled. Such a vast power could affect an area of more than 100,000 kilometers. It was definitely not something that an ordinary powerhouse could do. Unless it was a god. However, the divine path of the transcendental continent had been severed, and there were no more gods appearing in the hundreds of thousands. Is it a powerful divine artifact, or? He muttered as he watched the distance between him and the peak of the Ao Tien mountain get closer and closer. He opened his yin-yang 5 elements dragon eyes. Wang. In an instant, everything within the Ao Tien mountain appeared before his eyes. Oh! When he saw the situation over there, he was slightly stunned, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Finally, his gaze landed on the dragon god who was on the gigantic dragon fire lotus. Has he become a god? He mumbled. At this moment, the scene at the peak of the Aotien mountain appeared clearly in the sight of everyone in the dragon palace. At the peak of the Aotien mountain, the people from the dragon race, the Draconid Empire, and all the other forces also saw the arrival of Wang Xian and the rest. A few terrifying creatures that were more than 1,000 meters in size were pulling a dragon chair. They were so huge that they could even be described as gigantic beast. They were powerful creatures riding on powerful flaming mount. Everyone immediately recognized the arrival of the powerhouses from the dragon palace. 9 longevity-level creatures were pulling a dragon chair. In the entire continent, no other faction could match up to them. After the Dragon Palace managed to fend off the attacks of the Dragon Clan, they were even at their peak. They were known as one of the strongest existences on the continent. The Dragon King was also known as the third most powerful expert on the continent. However, when they saw the sudden arrival of the Dragon Palace, they were slightly stunned and showed some sympathy at the same time. The Dragon Palace had come at the wrong time. They were probably doomed. Everyone thought to themselves. They knelt on the ground and raised their heads to look at all the members of the Dragon Palace. They felt that the strength of the Dragon Palace seemed to have improved a lot. Unfortunately, the Dragon Palace is going to be destroyed in front of God. I'm afraid the Dragon Clan is going to fall too. Some people said sympathetically. The Dragon Palace is the Dragon King and all the members of the Dragon Palace. Ha ha ha, you don't want to go to heaven, but you want to break into hell. When all the members of the Dragon Palace came to a position 50 kilometers away, a violent voice sounded from the Dragon Clan's position. The first elder of the Water Dragon Clan stood up with a ferocious expression and roared at the members of the Dragon Palace. Lord Dragon God, you must take revenge for our Water Dragon Clan. As he spoke, he knelt down and said to the Dragon God. Everyone looked at the members of the Dragon Palace in unison. All the ants of the Dragon Palace, come and receive the judgment of the Dragon Clan. The Dragon God looked down from above and shouted arrogantly at all the members of the Dragon Palace. His voice resounded in the ears of every member of the Dragon Clan, and all the members of the Dragon Palace couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Citizens of the Dragon Phoenix Empire, cheer up immediately. The Dragon God's majestic voice didn't have much effect on the experts of the Dragon Clan. Feng Luan swept her gaze over and was extremely surprised. However, she shouted at all the experts of the Dragon Phoenix Empire without any fear. Chapter 1798. 1798. At the peak of the 1798 continent, Dragon King vs. Dragon God 1. That is. Empress, it's over. The Empress still doesn't know that the god of the dragon race has become a true god. She's finished. She's so close to the Dragon Palace. The Empress is also finished. I wonder if she will implicate the Dragon Phoenix Empire. When everyone saw Feng Luan completely ignore the Dragon God's words and shout at all the citizens of the Dragon Phoenix Empire, everyone below was shocked. The soldiers and important ministers of the Dragon Phoenix Empire who came this time nearly wet their pants when they heard their Empress's word. They were facing a true god, the first true god of the extraordinary continent in hundreds of thousands of years. In front of a god, all the Empire's forces were nothing but rubble. With a slight movement of the Dragon God, an empire that had been around for hundreds of thousands of years could collapse instantly. To provoke the Dragon God now was undoubtedly courting death. Empress, the god of the dragon race has become a true god, you. A soldier with a face full of cold sweat hurriedly reminded Feng Luan. Oh, a true god. Feng Luan was slightly stunned. Following that, Her pupils contracted slightly as she looked at the dragon god who was standing high above on the dragonfire lotus. All the members of the Dragon Palace and Wang Xian's gaze also landed on the dragon god. Kneel down and wait for the judgment of the dragon god. Otherwise, we will make you beg for death. The first elder of the water tribe shouted with a ferocious and excited face. Sigh. All the generals, ministers, and other experts of the Dragon Phoenix Empire heaved a heavy sigh. Their Lord Wang and even the Empress were in danger. Dragon God! Didn't the divine path of the Transcendence continent already end? Wang Xian glanced at the ferocious water dragon and looked at the dragon god as though he was asking a question or mumbling to himself. A bunch of ants, how dare you kill our dragon disciples? I will send all of you into my divine kingdom and let you enjoy the pain of being burned by the fire for 10,000 years. The dragon god saw everyone in the dragon palace standing there motionlessly. He spoke without any change in his expression. As he spoke, his dragon wings flapped gently. An incomparably huge flame cage flew out from the dragonfire lotus and covered all the members of the dragon palace. Wang Xian looked at the dragon god who was standing high up in the sky. He didn't put them in his eyes at all. He smiled gently. A god. It's a pity that I'm not afraid of a god. Wang Xian stood up slowly. He looked at the flames enveloping them and said faintly, "You don't know death. You are the first and last person who dares to speak to me like that. Today, I will let you bunch of ignorant ants experience the power of a true god." When the dragon god heard Wang Xian's words, his face turned cold instantly. Boom! The flaming cage that flew out from the dragonfire lotus suddenly emitted towering flames. The flames condensed into the shape of a fire dragon. There were more than 1,000 of them roaring in the cage. An invincible power came from above. The flames engulfed all the living beings in the dragon palace. Hiss, is this the power of a god? Who can resist it? Oh my god, with a wave of his hand, a flame cage appeared, and thousands of fire dragons rolled in it. This is too terrifying, and it is not something that humans can resist. Is this the power of a god? In front of this flame cage that covers an area of hundreds of kilometers, we are nothing but ant. When the flames engulfed the cage of flames and the fire dragon condensed and began to roar, everyone below trembled. An unrivaled power. This was an unrivaled power. The Dragon King and all the members of the Dragon Palace might regret it now. They are done for. Some of them thought to themselves. Hee hee. Wang Xian looked at the cage of flames that was attacking them. A cold smile appeared on his face. His body moved and he flew out from the dragon chair. He clawed at the cage in the air. Crack, crack, crack. A dragon claw suddenly appeared in the sky. The area of the flame cage was more than 100 kilometers. However, this grey dragon claw was also hundreds of kilometers long. The gigantic dragon claw of destruction clawed at the flame cage. In an instant, the entire cage collapsed and slowly dissipated. The dragon claw, carrying endless destruction, attacked the dragon god. What? Everyone was stunned when they saw the Dragon King floating in the sky, stretching out his arm and destroying the flaming cage with a gigantic dragon claw. Even the dragon god was shocked. His attack was actually broken by the Dragon King. He was the dragon god, the only true god on the continent. Wang. Seeing the dragon claw continue to attack him, the dragon god's pupils slightly shrank. Break. He also raised his dragon claw, and a huge flaming dragon claw directly met the grey dragon claw. Boom. A terrifying collision sounded again. The greyish dragon claw slowly dissipated. At the same time, the dragon god's flaming dragon claw also dissipated. This is impossible. An unbelievable voice came from the dragon god's mouth. He began to flap his wings and stared at Wang Xian with a pair of ice-cold dragon eyes filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Oh my god, how can the Dragon King's attack break the two attacks of the dragon god? This isn't the Dragon King at most at level 9 of longevity. What the hell is going on? When everyone saw that the dragon god's attack was cancelled out once again and heard the dragon god's shocked voice, everyone around was stunned. This was especially so for the dragon race and the Draconid Empire. This was their god who had just ignited the divine fire. How could the Dragon King block the attack? How could a puny Dragon King be on par with their dragon god? As for the rest of them, they were so shocked that they didn't know what to say. Impossible? What's impossible? Dragon race, speaking of which, all of you only have a trace of the bloodline of the divine dragon race. You are just a sub-dragon, yet you still want to compete with the divine dragon? Wang Xian looked at the dragon god and the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. His body trembled slightly as a 7-colored divine dragon condensed around him. I'm the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace of the Divine Dragon Clan. Do you really think that you can stand high above me and judge me just because you've reached the godly state? Haha, you've only ignited a trace of divine fire. It's just right. My strength has just broken through. I'll use the blood and soul of your dragon god to test my full strength. Roar, roar, roar. After Wang Xian finished speaking, a dragon roar sounded from his mouth. Around him, the condensed 7-colored divine dragon instantly solidified. Its ice-cold 7-colored dragon eyes stared at the dragon god. Roar. No, I am the only true god on the continent. I am the #1 dragon god in the world. You have not even ignited the divine fire and you still want to fight against me. Today, I will let you witness the full strength of a true god. I will make you grovel and tremble under my body. The god of dragons felt the terrifying pressure coming from Wang Xian. His eyes shot out endless flames as he roared. He stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent. Dragon King vs. Dragon God. Chapter 1799. 1799 On the summit of the 1799 continent, Dragon King vs. Dragon God 2. In the sky above the lofty sky mountain peak, the dragon god, who was standing on the Dragonfire Lotus country, spread out his huge dragon wings and stared at the Dragon King with murderous intent. On the opposite side, the 7-colored divine dragon was circling around with his hands behind his back. Wang Xian, who was standing proudly in the sky, looked at the dragon god calmly. Facing the first true god of the extraordinary continent in hundreds of thousands of years, he was not afraid at all. Everyone sucked in a cold breath when they saw this scene. Not long ago, the Dragon King was known as the 3rd strongest person on the continent. There was a huge gap between him and the god of the dragon race and Emperor Ao Shan. However, the god of the dragon race was able to destroy Emperor Ao Shan before he ignited the divine fire. Now that the divine fire had been ignited, the divine spark had been condensed. The divine kingdom had also been raised up high by him. The only true god in the Transcendence continent. Now, the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace was actually able to stand up to him without losing the slightest bit of ground. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. The Dragon King is able to stand up to the Dragon God. Gulp. Is the Dragon King also a god? The Dragon King calls himself the Divine Dragon Race. His rise to power is quite terrifying. Could it be that he has the inheritance of the Divine Dragon Race? Everyone kneeling on the ground saw this scene, and their eyes were filled with shock. The Dragon King's strength and the rise of the Dragon King surprised all of them. The Divine Dragon Clan that the Dragon King spoke of, was it the inheritance of a powerful creature? On the extraordinary continent, people only knew of the Dragon Clan, and did not know of the existence of the so-called Divine Dragon Clan. However, to dare to use the name of a god, coupled with the current strength of the Dragon King, this creature must be extraordinary. It's delusional to think of fighting against our Lord Dragon God. Our Dragon God is a true god. He has ignited the divine fire and owns the divine kingdom. All the powerhouses from the dragon race and the Draconid Empire clenched their dragon claws and arms tightly. Their eyes were fixed on the sky. Divine fire, burn. The dragon god looked at Wang Xian's silent provocation. He opened his mouth and a glistening flame attacked. Pa, pa, pa. Wherever the divine fire went, even the air started to burn. In the sky, one could clearly see a trace. 5 elements, extinguish into a river. Wang Xian looked at the divine fire that was attacking him and waved his arm. Buzz. A long river appeared behind him and swept forward in an instant. The entire sky looked as though the long river that was destroyed by the 5 elements had left a grey mark. Boom. The divine fire and the extinguish turned into a river as they collided. The power of the extinguish of the 5 elements began to erode the divine fire rapidly. From below, it was obvious that the divine fire was melting rapidly. The long river of extinguish was spreading towards the dragon god. The Dragon King has gained the upper hand once again, oh my god. Every attack of the Dragon King and the Dragon God left a clear mark in the sky. This kind of attack was less violent, but more terrifying. The flames seemed to burn everything in the world in an instant. The destructive power of the 5 elements seemed to wipe out everything. Even if it was a collision, there weren't any terrifying explosions. When everyone saw that the Dragon King's attack had gained the upper hand once again, everyone took a deep breath. Roar, roar, roar. With my body, I will trample on your humble body. When the dragon god saw that his attack was at a disadvantage again, he spread his dragon wings. The dragon wings trembled slightly. With a terrifying speed, he drew a fire scar and appeared in front of Wang Xian. You can't do it with the strength of your physical body. Wang Xian felt the strength of the dragon god. His eyes were filled with coldness as he extended his arm. Crack, crack. The dragon claws appeared. Following that, his entire body turned into the body of a divine dragon. The 5,000-meter-long body of a divine dragon and the incomparably sharp dragon claws went straight for the dragon god. Roar, roar. My body has been tempered by the divine fire. It is the body of a divine being. If you want to fight against me, you, who didn't ignite the divine fire, are not qualified to do so. The dragon god roared furiously. When he saw Wang Xian's dragon claws, he didn't flinch at all. He was a god, a true god who had ignited the divine fire. After being tempered by the divine fire, his body had completely turned into the body of a god. The dragon race had a strong physical body to begin with. Furthermore, they had been cleansed by the divine fire. Bang! It was a completely physical confrontation. When the dragon god's dragon claws collided with Wang Xian's dragon claws, a terrifying collision sound was heard. It was like a muffled sound of a meteorite falling on the supernatural continent. The surrounding air rushed towards the back rapidly. When the collision happened, the dragon god's body stiffened. His dragon claws began to transform slowly. Following that, an extremely terrifying force was transmitted towards his body. A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out from his mouth. The dragon god stared at Wang Xian with a horrified expression. Finally, a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. Bang! Following that, his dragon body flew backward at a terrifying speed. Roar! He let out a painful scream. Roar! Wang Xian also let out a soft roar. His body moved and swept his dragon tail horizontally. With a terrifying speed, he struck the dragon god once again. When the dragon god saw the 7-colored dragon tail and felt the strength of the stars, his expression changed drastically again. He retracted his dragon wings to protect his body. Crack, crack, crack. When the dragon tail swept across the dragon wings, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. The dragon god's body flew backward once again. You actually hurt me. The dragon god roared in shock and anger. At the back, the dragonfire lotus released streams of flames to protect him. Hee. Wang Xian laughed in disdain. Do you really think you are invincible just because you have become a god? Who dares to claim to be invincible? Who is undefeated in front of me? So what if you are the dragon god? He roared loudly. The crown turned into the 5 elements millstone and floated above him. Buzz. Following that, a taiji pattern appeared below his body and rotated slowly. The 5 elements were grinding on top of his head while he was standing on the yin and yang poles. Wang Xian was not afraid of the dragon god in terms of defense and attack. With the combination of the 7 elements, he was able to kill the true god who had ignited a wisp of divine fire. At this moment, everyone below was completely stunned when they saw the dragon god being injured. Roar, roar, roar. Good. What a good dragon king. To think that he was able to injure me. I don't know why you have such powerful strength. However, you are definitely no match for me in front of the divine kingdom. The recovery ability and endless energy of a god are definitely not something that an ordinary person like you can compare to. Those below the true god are all ants. The dragon god glared at Wang Xian with his eyes that were about to split open as he roared again. He could not believe that he, a true god, was not a match for a creature below the divine realm. He could not believe it. Floating above the dragon's fire lotus divine kingdom, his injuries were recovering rapidly. An endless stream of energy surged into his body, causing him to go completely berserk. Chapter 1800. 1800. At the peak of the 1800 continent, Dragon King vs. Dragon God 3. With the support of the divine kingdom, the power of a god could be greatly enhanced. A powerful divine kingdom was more important to a god than a powerful divine artifact. The divine kingdom could absorb the energy between heaven and earth at any time and pour it directly into one's body. It could increase one's recovery power by hundreds of times. It could allow the god to possess an inexhaustible amount of energy. The berserk god of dragons was floating on his divine kingdom's dragon fire lotus. He didn't believe that with the support of the divine kingdom, he wasn't a match for a puny dragon king. Divine kingdom, fire dragon roar. The dragon god stood in the center of the dragon fire lotus and opened his mouth. Flames from afar entered his body. Boom! A terrifying flame that could destroy 3 to 4 cities charged directly at Wang Xian. The flames condensed into thousands of fire dragons that were 1,000 meters in size. Thousands of dragon heads were roaring ferociously in front of him. Thousands of dragons were burning. Don't give up. Wang Xian's eyes revealed a cold expression. His body shook and the yin and yang dual polarity diagram below him rotated and stood upright in front of him. The yin-yang dual polarity diagram spun and in the middle, the divine dragons of light and darkness raised their heads and roared. The entire yin-yang taiji diagram was extremely mystical. Buzz! The terrifying thousands of fire dragons landed on the yin-yang taiji diagram and were completely blocked. Fire dragon wing slash. The dragon god stared at Wang Xian with his blood-red eyes. His dragon wings trembled again. Within the fire lotus of dragons, countless divine flames were added to the attack. Streams of dragon wings that were as bright as lava continued to attack Wang Xian. Clang! 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 The dragon wings landed on the yin-yang dual polarity diagram, producing an extremely violent sound of collision. The yin-yang taiji trembled for a moment, but it was still able to withstand the attack of the dragon god. The dragon god doesn't seem to be a match for the Dragon King at all. Be it the collision of energy or the collision of physical bodies, he is at a disadvantage. This Dragon King is simply too strong. No wonder all the members of the Dragon Palace are so fearless. Below, everyone who saw that the Dragon God had been suppressed all this while had stunned expressions on their faces. The only true god in the Transcendence continent was actually at a disadvantage under the attack of the Dragon King. The expressions of some people changed. The soldiers and experts of the Dragon and Phoenix Empire hesitated for a moment before standing up and no longer kneeling on the ground. Judging from the situation, the Dragon God might not be a match for the Dragon King. It's my turn. When Wang Xian saw that the Dragon God's own attacks were being blocked consecutively, he was stunned. He raised his dragon head slightly and roared, roar. With a soft roar, the 5 elements millstone spun. The 5 divine dragons on it let out a roar. The 5 types of energy, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, condensed into 5 divine dragons respectively and attacked the dragon god directly. What? 5 types of attributes? Is this a divine weapon? Seeing the 5 elements divine dragons attacking him, the dragon god's expression changed slightly again. His attack was easily blocked, and the Dragon King's weapon was extremely mystical, which made him clench his teeth tightly. Divine fire, ignite! He roared with an extremely ugly expression, and a wisp of flame slowly emerged from his head. Divine fire blessing! Divine kingdom! He gritted his teeth and let out another loud roar. Wang! The dragon fire lotus beneath him began to spin rapidly. Attack! The divine kingdom revolved as flames that looked like lotus petals shot towards the 5 divine dragons of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth under the rotation of the dragon fire lotus. Boom boom boom! The fire petals seemed to be endless, each of them 5 to 6,000 meters in size. The 5 divine dragons were instantly destroyed by the flaming petals. Are we going to use the divine kingdom to attack? Wang Xian revealed a serious expression. After all, a god was a god. Even though Wang Xian's energy and physical body had suppressed the dragon god still possessed the divine kingdom. The divine kingdom could destroy a weak star. Let's test the power of the divine kingdom. 5 elements millstone, attack. Wang Xian shouted loudly. The 5 elements millstone, which was rotating for a radius of tens of kilometers, brought with it a grayish destructive force as it smashed directly toward the dragonfire lotus. On the 5 elements millstone, the 5 divine dragons roared. At the edge of the millstone, pieces of extremely powerful dragon scales slowly condensed. The rotating 5 elements millstone was like a chainsaw that reaped everything in front of it. Roar. Then I'll let you experience the power of my divine kingdom. The dragon god roared with a ferocious expression. He flapped his dragon wings, and the 12 petals of the dragonfire lotus slowly close. Break. The closed fire lotus was like a bullet, and it directly collided with the 5 elements millstone. It was like 2 holy objects colliding. Everyone looked up from below. Buzz. The moment the dragonfire lotus collided with the 5 elements grinding mill, the 5 elements grinding mill trembled and flew backward at a terrifying speed. The dragon god has the upper hand this time. The divine kingdom is the source of the power of a god. It's already extremely powerful. Moreover, the item that the dragon god used to create the divine kingdom is also a supreme treasure between heaven and earth. That's why it's so powerful. Some of the powerhouses whispered when they saw this scene. All the members of the Draconid Empire and the dragon race heaved a heavy sigh of relief. What a powerful divine kingdom. Wang Xian was also slightly shocked. The strength of each divine kingdom was different. A powerful divine kingdom could completely suppress the same level. It could even cause a god to fight against a higher level. The divine kingdom of the dragon god was obviously extraordinary. Roar. 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 The dragonfire lotus is the largest volcano in the Transcendence continent. It contains countless fire spirit pearls and countless precious materials. Today, I will let you experience it. As a god, it is the most powerful means. Attack from the divine kingdom. The dragon god roared excitedly. He sat on the closed dragonfire lotus and charged directly at Wang Xian. Wang Xian's expression did not change. He stared at the yin-yang polar diagram in front of him and shouted, Tai Chi, defend. Buzz. The yin-yang polar diagram rotated slowly and charged towards the dragonfire lotus. Crack, crack, crack. When the dragonfire lotus collided with the yin-yang polar diagram, the momentum of the collision obviously stopped. However, the spinning Tai Chi slowly stopped and started to crumble. Roar. The light and darkness dragons revealed their terrified figures and flew towards Wang Xian. Roar. 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 The power of the divine kingdom is not something a mortal like you can match up to. Upon seeing this scene, the dragon god's ferocious face revealed an excited expression as he roared loudly. Below, when everyone saw the dragon god who had the upper hand, their hearts tightened slightly. Kill the dragon king. Kill that bastard. Kill him. Anyone who stands in our way must die. The experts of the dragon race and the Dragonman Empire roared with murderous intent. However, when they finished their roars, many cold gazes were fixed on them. In the direction of the Dragon Palace, all the members of the Dragon Palace glanced at the members of the dragon race and the Dragonman Empire with murderous intent. A bunch of animals. After the dragon god kills your dragon king, all of you will enjoy the pain of being burned for 10,000 years. Ha ha ha. A fire dragon elder of the dragon clan roared angrily. All the disciples of the Dragon Palace, get ready. However, as soon as the fire dragon elder finished his words, Prime Minister Gui's cold voice sounded. Chapter 1801. 1801 On the summit of the 1801 continent, Dragon King vs. Dragon God 4. All disciples of the Dragon Palace, get ready. Ha! With Prime Minister Gui's order, all the members of the Dragon Palace shouted and raised their weapons. All the members of the Dragon Palace quickly got into battle formation. Their eyes were full of fighting spirit as they stared at the Dragon Clan and all the people of the Draconid Empire. Seeing this, All the people of the Dragon Clan and the Draconid Empire were stunned for a moment. Then, waves of brutal aura rushed over from the Dragon Clan. Roar, 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 the 20,000 members of the Little Dragon Palace dare to be enemies with the Dragon Clan. All the Dragon Clan disciples, get ready. The experts of the Dragon Clan were also extremely brutal. Only about 20,000 members of the Dragon Clan wanted to fight with the 300,000 members of the Dragon Clan. So what if the Dragon Clan blocked their attack and destroyed the 100,000 members of the Water Dragon Clan? However, it was obvious that the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace was too powerful. Moreover, they learned from the first elder of the Water Dragon Clan the basic strength of some members of the Dragon Palace. Although they were very powerful, how could they be their opponents? The Water Dragon Clan was the weakest existence in the Dragon Clan. All the soldiers of the Draconid Empire, anyone who dares to provoke the Dragon Clan must die. The son of the Dragon Emperor, shouted and ordered all the soldiers. Kill. All the soldiers roared and raised their weapons. Members of the Dragon Palace, attack. Seeing the members of the Dragon Clan and the Draconid Empire, Prime Minister Gui's face turned cold. He waved his hand and gave the order to attack. Roar, 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 swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The moment the order was given, the Fire Phoenix Dragon roared. Following that, arrows shot toward the center of the Dragon Race and the Dragonman Empire at a terrifying speed. After killing most of the sea beasts in the Extraordinary Sea, the Dragon Palace's strength had reached a shocking level. What did it mean to be at least at the 9th level of the Extraordinary Realm? It could fight or even kill a half-step one-show expert. It was equivalent to the Dragon King level of the Dragon Clan. Among them, 14,000 to 15,000 had the combat strength of the one-show level. Among the 1,500 members of the Heavenly Eye Arrow Division, more than 1,000 had the combat strength of the one-show level. At present, the entire Dragon Clan only had more than 3,000 one-show expert. Every single arrow from Mauserson's group contained a terrifying power. When the arrows arrived, the Dragon Race and all the members of the Draconid Empire were stunned. Defend. The Dragon Emperor immediately roared and faced the arrows. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying explosion sounded and the terrifying shockwaves spread in all directions. What a terrifying arrow. The Dragon Emperor's pupils contracted as he looked at the terrifying arrow. The arrows released by more than 1,000 members of the Dragon Palace had caused more than 1,000 Dragon Emperors of the Dragon Clan to defend themselves. This strength. Hiss, what a powerful shockwave. Let's retreat, let's retreat. This. The Dragon Palace's strength is terrifying. Retreat from this area. The moment the battle between the Dragon Palace and the Draconid Empire broke out, everyone felt the terrifying shockwave and quickly fled into the distance. In an instant, the entire Outyen mountain peak was in chaos. Kill, roar. Just as the Draconid Empire and the Dragon Clan were shocked by the terrifying arrow, the Berserk Devil Battle Division members rode on their Fire Phoenix Dragon mounts and rushed over. The Thunder Division, the Starwood Combat Division, and the Dragon Guard followed closely behind and attacked them. Counterattack and kill all the beasts of the Dragon Palace. Let them see how powerful our Dragon Clan is. Seeing the members of the Dragon Palace attacking them, the Dragon Emperors of the Dragon Clan roared loudly. Roar, roar, roar. The roars of over 300,000 dragons rang out instantly, and the whole world was filled with the roars of dragons. Ring, ring, ring. At this moment, special sound waves rang out one after another, and raindrops appeared out of thin air within a radius of 100 kilometers. Countless raindrops fell towards the entire battlefield. The sound accompanied the raindrops, and when they landed on the bodies of the dragons and the members of the Draconid Empire, everyone's bodies stiffened slightly. Even those Dragon Emperors felt as if there was an additional shackle on their bodies out of thin air. As for those below the Longevity Realm, the expressions of all the members of the Dragon Clan and the powerhouses of the Draconid Empire changed drastically. However, in just 2 seconds, the miserable screams of the peak of the Extraordinary Realm and the profound Void Realm experts rang out one after another. Be careful of these raindrops, they have powerful corrosive and poisonous properties. Fire Dragon roar. The sudden change caused the expressions of almost 80% of the members of the Draconid Empire and the Dragon Clan to change drastically. We're still the stronger ones. Ao Chitian, Ao Chi, and the others are all boars. At the back, Ba Chi patted the dolphin leader beside him and said with a faint smile, "The toxins you've studied are only effective against them. It's useless against Ao Chitian or the Demon War Department." The dolphin leader, who was pink all over, said indifferently, causing Ba Chi to choke slightly. This is just the start of the battle, and the dragon race and the Dragon Empire have already suffered heavy losses. How can the Dragon Palace be so terrifying? The Dragon Palace is not only powerful because of the Dragon King, but the members are also terrifying. Feel that aura. It seems like none of them is below level 9 of the profound void martial stage. Oh my god, how can the aura of the members of the Dragon Palace be so terrifying? All the human and demon beasts hiding in the surroundings were shocked. The weird sound and raindrops had killed half of the weak members of the Dragon Clan and the Draconid Empire. 90% of the millions of troops of the Draconid Empire were killed instantly. Roar, eat my rod. Lightning dragons wreak havoc. Return, heartless sword. At this moment, violent, savage, and cold emotionless voices sounded. The devil monkeys holding metal rods, the divine lightning prawns holding lightning hammers and spears, and the ice-cold dragon guards holding metal sword. One attack after another shot forward. In the sky, vines seemed to come from the ninth heaven as they lashed out at the dragon tribe members. The incomparably terrifying attacks caused all the members of the Dragon Clan and the Dragonman Empire to be stupefied. The sound waves that strangely suppressed their strength, as well as the raindrops that carried a powerful poison that could cause even the profound void martial experts to fall, had already caused them to be stupefied. When the Dragon Palace's Demon Battle Division, Dragon Guard, Thunder Division, Starwood Battle Division, and the group of mounts launched every attack, they were completely shocked. They sensed that 70% of these attacks could threaten the longevity level expert. What was going on? There were more than 10,000 longevity level experts among them. However, the Dragon Clan and the Dragon Empire only had more than 3,000 combined. That was a fraction of the Dragon Palace. Chapter 1802. 1802. At the peak of the 1802 continent, Dragon King vs. Dragon God 5. Boom. 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 A terrifying energy attack poured out towards the members of the Dragon Clan and the Dragonman Empire. What was the concept of more than 10,000 longevity experts attacking at the same time? This was like a violent energy tide that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Faced with this terrifying attack, the remaining experts of the Dragon Clan and the Dragonman Empire widened their eyes, filled with shock. Roar, roar, roar. Elders, make your move. We will hold them off. Kill them, kill them. The first elder of the Water Dragon Clan roared ferociously as water spirit pearls floated around him. A sky screen directly blocked the front. Block. The first elder of the Fire Dragon Clan and the first elder of the Wind Dragon Clan roared in anger as well. A huge wind shield floated behind the sky screen, followed closely by an incomparably huge flame shield that flew towards the back of the wind shield. Boom. 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 Countless energies smashed down, and the blue sky slowly collapsed. The wind shield slowly cracked, and when it reached the flame shield, it melted instantly. The three of us killed the experts of the Dragon Palace. The first elder of the Fire Dragon Clan felt his heart tremble when he saw that only 2 of his defenses were able to block the attacks of the experts of the Dragon Palace. After all, the 3 of them were at the peak of the 9th rank of the longevity realm. 2 of the defenses released by the 3 rank 9 longevity experts were broken by the Dragon Palace. One could imagine how terrifying the members of the Dragon Palace were. Chirp chirp. Experts of the Dragon Clan, your opponent is me. At this moment, Feng Luan, who was standing next to the members of the Dragon Palace, let out a phoenix cry. A fiery red phoenix circled around her. She moved and flew directly toward the 3 first elders of the Dragon Clan. Boom. At the same time, Feng Luan's body began to transform into a fire phoenix. The 1,000-meter-wide fire phoenix was surrounded by specks of flames. These flames were like the divine flames of the dragon god, emitting light. What? What a terrifying aura. Half-step divine realm. Sensing the aura from Feng Luan, the three first elders of the dragon clan narrowed their eyes and their expressions changed drastically. Half-step divine realm. The dragon god of their dragon clan and the great-great elder were all half-step divine realm experts. They knew how powerful half-step divine realm experts were. My god, the Empress actually has the strength of a half-step divine realm expert. My god, the dragon and Phoenix Empress has such terrifying strength. The members of the Dragon Palace are also abnormally powerful. The Dragon Clan has no chance to resist at all. The surrounding people were all shocked when they saw this scene. The strength of the Dragon Palace almost caused the Dragon Clan to be defeated in an instant. The Empress' terror and the dignity of a half-step god realm was even more obvious. Chirp chirp. At this moment, Feng Luan roared and 3 balls of Nirvana fire attacked the 3 first elders of the Dragon Clan. Continue to attack. Kill. Below, all the members of the Dragon Palace exploded into a second round of attacks. Oh no. No, no, how can a Dragon Palace be so powerful? Lord Dragon God, save us. When the 3 great elders of the Dragon Clan were locked onto by Feng Luan, the rest of the Dragon Clan's experts revealed terrified expressions. Especially in the Dragonman Empire, all the experts almost wet their pants in fear. More than 300,000 dragon races powerhouses, in addition to the strength of their Draconid Empire, were completely crushed. How many people could withstand the attack of at least half a step into the longevity realm? Terrified voices came from their mouths. Some of the dragons and Draconids pleaded for help to the dragon god in the sky. Hey! The dragon god who was fighting with Wang Xian in the sky frowned slightly when he heard the terrified voices coming from below. His eyes swept down and his face darkened. A bunch of trash. Anger appeared in the eyes of the dragon god. The closed dragonfire lotus was aimed at the experts of the dragon palace below. Dragon god, how dare you be distracted when you are fighting with me? Wang Xian's eyes swept down and a hint of coldness flashed across his eyes. The 5 elements millstone spun and charged directly at the dragon god. Get lost. The closed fire lotus of the dragon aimed at Wang Xian. A torrent of flames rushed straight at Wang Xian. Yin-yang 5 elements. Wang Xian swayed his huge body and spun around in the air. The 5 elements millstone was covered by the yin and yang poles and met the attack of the dragon god directly. Buzz. Dragon breath. Wang Xian hovered above the 5 elements millstone. He opened his dragon mouth slightly and shot out a ray of 7-colored divine light. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, yin and yang, 7 attributes, and 7 divine colors. Damn it! The dragon god who was completely restrained revealed a hint of anger. He stared at the dragonfire lotus with a hesitant expression. No, no, no. Roar, dragon god, save us. At this moment, there were continuous screams coming from below. After Feng Luan made her move, the 3 rank 9 elders of the Dragon Clan were pinned down. The second round of attacks from the Dragon Palace arrived. Without any members of the Shu Dragon Palace rushing over, another round of energy tide came. Arrows, sharp swords, thorns, devil chi, and lightning. When the attacks came, the Dragon Clan couldn't resist at all. The difference in strength was too great. How could the Dragon Clan defend against the 10,000 longevity-level warriors of the Dragon Palace? Even if they had more than 300,000 Dragon Clan members, they were still useless in front of the Dragon Palace. Gulp. Completely crush. Completely crushed. How can the Dragon Palace rise so fast? Seeing the members of the Dragon Clan and the Dragonman Empire completely covered by the energy tide, everyone swallowed their saliva. The gap was too big. They thought that the Dragon Palace only relied on one Dragon King. It was easy for more than 300,000 experts of the Dragon Clan to fight against 20,000 experts of the Dragon Palace. However, they didn't expect that all the members of the Dragon Palace didn't make a move. The 3,000 or so members of the Earth Yellow Saturn Turtle Dragon Palace stood there motionlessly. The giant beasts of the Dragon Palace and the women of the Dragon Kings didn't move either. The Empress and the warriors of the Dragon Palace easily defeated more than 300,000 members of the Dragon Clan without any casualties. They didn't have any ability to resist. There was a huge gap in strength. This scene was unimaginable for everyone on the Transcendence continent. Lord Dragon God! Lord Dragon God! No. As the son of the dragon race, the emperor of the Draconid Empire, his face was heavily injured as he shouted in despair. Boom! An enormous ocean-pacifying divine needle landed on his head and instantly killed him. No. The three great elders of the dragon race and the rank 8 experts of the dragon race who had been taken care of by Feng Luan also let out desperate roars. Feng Luan had the strength to easily kill them. Facing her attack, they were quickly heavily injured. In less than 3 minutes, more than 300,000 experts of the dragon race had all died. Not to mention the Dragonman Empire, not a single one was left. This time, because the god of the dragon race was about to become a god, all the members of the dragon race had arrived. In other words, only one dragon god of the dragon race was still alive. Chapter 1803. 1803. On the peak of the 1803 continent, the king of transcendence. The dragon race, the dragon race. They're dead. They were all killed by the 2 rounds of attacks from the dragon palace. Oh my god, there are over 300,000 dragon race expert. Hiss, does this mean that the dragon race has been completely annihilated? Everyone around was shocked when they saw the death of the dragon race experts. Apart from the one and only dragon god, the rest of the powerful and invincible dragon clan had all died. This was a devastating blow. Even if the dragon god could defeat the dragon palace and the dragon king today, it was hard to say whether the dragon clan would be able to recover in the next tens of thousands of years. This time, the dragon clan was completely defeated. Roar, 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 dragon king, dragon palace, all of you must die. When the dragon god saw that all the members of the dragon clan had been killed in a short period of time, a violent expression appeared on his face. A violent aura came from his body, and the entire sky seemed to shake because of his anger. The sky and earth change. Dragon fire lotus, bloom. Today, all living creatures must die, all of them. The dragon god raised his head and let out an extremely angry roar. A brutal murderous aura instantly filled an area of more than 10,000 kilometers. Everyone felt their breathing stop. It was as if someone was holding their neck. Their breathing stop. Huh! Wang Xian was slightly stunned when he saw the blooming dragonfire lotus again. A solemn expression appeared on his face. Ha ha ha, all of you have completely angered me. Today, all living creatures will be buried with US dragons. The dragon god stared at Wang Xian with his slightly red eyes. He was floating in the middle of the dragonfire lotus. The divine fire above his head was emitting a mystical radiance. The radiance covered an area of over 10,000 kilometers. Roar, 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 buzz. The dragon god raised his head and roared. The 12 petals of the dragonfire lotus divine kingdom were emitting an extremely bright fire radiance. The fire radiance shot into the sky. The entire sky actually reflected the virtual image of the dragonfire lotus divine kingdom. Dragon's fire lotus, the wrath of God. Dragon king, prepare to die. All of you ants, bear the wrath of God. The image of the dragon's fire lotus divine kingdom in the sky slowly rotated, covering an area of more than 10,000 kilometers. What's going on? The image of a fire lotus actually appeared in the sky. My God, what kind of attack is this from the dragon god? This. Such a terrifying area. It's like the end of the world. Everyone's expressions changed when they felt the pressure coming from the sky. Even the members of the dragon palace were filled with fear. Buzz. The next moment, the dragonfire lotus in the sky started to spin, and every petal of the fire lotus started to emit divine light. This scene was extremely beautiful. But after the beauty, it brought destruction. The sky shook and was taken over by the dragon's fire lotus. This piece of sky belonged to the dragon god's divine kingdom's domain. Following that, within the dragon's fire lotus divine kingdom's domain, endless flames descended from the sky. Endless flames, each of which was at least 1,000 meters in size, descended from the sky without any blind spots. God's strike. World-extinguishing fire lotus. My God. No, no. At this moment, everyone looked up at the sky as their bodies trembled violently. Some of them even knelt on the ground in fear. World-extinguishing strike. I have to say, Dragon God, your divine kingdom is very strong. Coincidentally, I want to try my divine kingdom's phantom image too. Wang Xian looked at the scene in the sky and was slightly shocked. He focused his gaze and stared at the Dragon God coldly. Roar roar, Dragon King, I didn't want to unleash this move. However, if you dare to destroy all the disciples of my dragon race, don't blame me. Today, you will die. The Dragon God roared at Wang Xian furiously. This move was his strongest attack. It affected an area of over 10,000 kilometers and could carry out a continuous attack for up to 10 minutes. This move could easily destroy an empire. It could easily slaughter hundreds of millions of lives. The attack that had no blind spots would affect his Dragon Clan disciples, so he hadn't released it. Now that all the members of the Dragon Clan had been destroyed, he was completely enraged. The wrath of a god could destroy the world. The vast attack and unrivaled power covered an area of over 10,000 kilometers with no blind spots. Looking at this scene, everyone within a radius of 10,000 kilometers was filled with horror and despair. Divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom. Wang Xian looked at this terrifying attack and his body trembled. He unleashed his last trump card. He roared loudly and the void trembled. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, a vast dragon's roar appeared out of thin air. The shadow of a dragon palace gradually condensed, and the gigantic dragon throne supported Wang Xian. He sat on the dragon throne, and the divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom appeared around him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 5 elements grinding mill flew into the divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom quickly and transformed into a backbone. Yin-Yang Tai Chi appeared in a flash and merged into the divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom, turning into flesh and blood. The location of Wang Xian's heart emitted a hint of vitality, and the light shadow of the ancestral tree flashed past. Very soon, a seemingly corporeal dragon palace appeared around Wang Xian. The kingdom of God was not very big. It was only about 25 kilometers in circumference. Wang Xian sat cross-legged on the dragon and was filled with endless majesty. Hey! The dragon god was slightly shocked when he saw the dragon palace that suddenly condensed around Wang Xian. However, when he saw that it was only 50 meters in size, his eyes were filled with coldness. Dragon Fire Lotus, Wrath of God, attack me. The dragon god crouched in the middle of the Dragon Fire Lotus and shot out a stream of flames. At the center of the Dragon Fire Lotus phantom in the sky, a pillar of divine flames with a diameter of 50 kilometers descended from the sky and attacked Wang Xian directly. The pillar of divine flames with a radius of 50 kilometers almost penetrated the space in the sky. It was so terrifying. Divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom, Roar of the 7 Divine Dragons. Wang Xian looked at the extremely terrifying attack in the sky. He raised his head slightly and roared as he sat on the dragon throne. Roar, roar, roar. Roars came from the entire divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom. In the Dragon Palace, divine dragons emerged one after another. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, light, and darkness. 7 divine abilities flew out from the divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom. Each divine dragon stared at the vast image of the dragon's fire lotus above them and charged forward. While flying, the 7 divine dragons grew in size at a terrifying speed. In the end, each divine dragon reached a terrifying size of a few hundred kilometers. Roar. The water divine dragon in the middle opened its gigantic mouth and spat out a water pillar to meet the fire pillar within a radius of 50 kilometers. 7 dragons breaking the sky. When the 7 dragons rushed into the sky, the divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom around Wang Xian dimmed. The few divine dragons had almost exhausted all the energy in the divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom. Hiss, this attack from the Dragon King is so terrifying. 7 dragons rising to the sky and attacking the world-extinguishing Fire Lotus. The final collision. After this attack, I'm afraid the victor will be determined. If the Dragon King can't withstand it, we might all die. Seeing the 7 divine dragons that were 100 kilometers long heading towards the world-extinguishing Fire Lotus in the sky, everyone was extremely nervous. The final attack. Chapter 1804. 1804. At the peak of the 1804 continent, Among the extraordinary kings, countless people within a radius of 10,000 kilometers raised their heads and looked up. The Dragon King's attack determined their fate. If the Dragon King failed, they might be directly destroyed by the Dragon God. Even all the members of the Dragon Palace, as well as the group of girls, were staring at the attack from above with worried expression. When the Dragon God saw the 7 divine dragons charging towards the Dragon Fire Lotus Divine Kingdom, his pupils constricted. Each of the 7 divine dragons had different attributes, and their bodies covered a radius of 100 kilometers. Although they looked small under his world-extinguishing fire lotus, they still shocked him. Roar. In the center, the water god dragon shot out a water column, directly meeting the fire column within a 50-kilometer radius. He raised his head, pointed his dragon mouth at the sky, and rushed straight up. Bzzz, bzzz. When the water god dragon collided with the world-extinguishing fire column that fell from the sky, the sound of water and fire melting rang out. The water god dragon's flying body paused slightly, but soon after, the water god dragon swayed his body and slowly rushed up. Although his speed was only 1/10 of what it was before, the fire pillar was gradually shrinking under the water god dragon's attack. With just these 7 attribute beasts, you want to break the strongest attack of my divine kingdom? Dream on. World-destroying pillar. The dragon god's expression changed slightly when he saw this scene. The divine fire above his head flourished, and rays of divine light covered the dragon's fire lotus divine kingdom below him. Boom! In an instant, when the power of the divine light landed on the divine kingdom, the 12 fire lotus petals in the sky, which were millions of kilometers away, once again released even more powerful flames. The world-extinguishing fire pillar in the middle once again expanded to an area of 10 kilometers. The fire pillar rapidly charged, burning all the water pillars and landing in the mouth of the water dragon. Roar, roar, roar. However, at this moment, the 6 divine dragons in the surroundings let out roars. Gold, wood, fire, earth, and darkness shone. The 6 divine dragons simultaneously let out powerful dragon breaths and attacked the dragon's fire lotus divine kingdom phantom in the sky. The flames that fell from the sky were immediately destroyed by the 6 gigantic dragon breaths. Looking from afar, the 6 divine dragons of all colors were emitting a mystical light as they let out terrifying attacks from their mouth. Boom! 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 The dragon breath of the 6 attributes landed on the projection of the dragon's fire lotus and immediately broke through a huge hole. When the sunlight shone in, everyone had an illusion. A hole had been broken in the sky. It was precisely because of this that the divine kingdom had taken over this piece of sky. The 6 divine dragons had broken through this piece of sky. What? When the dragon god saw the few huge holes in the sky, his expression changed slightly. He flapped his wings and spat out a mouthful of scorching flames towards the dragon's fire lotus divine kingdom. Sky mending. Heh! Do you still want to control it? Wang Xian saw him mending the holes in the sky. His pair of dragon eyes looked at the dragon god with a cold glint in them. Roar, roar, die. He growled and pounced towards the dragon god. Roar, roar, damn it. When the dragon god saw Wang Xian flying over, a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. He moved his body and flew into the sky, trying to dodge his attack. Roar, roar, roar. When he saw the dragon god's fearful expression, the coldness in Wang Xian's eyes intensified. Dragon kingdom in his palm. Dragon body of 10,000 miles. Dragon head of the world. Dragon tail swishing. He let out a low roar and his entire body immediately transformed into a radius of 50 kilometers. He ignored the dragon god who had escaped into the sky and attacked the dragon fire lotus with his dragon claws. Boom! A huge force landed on the dragon fire lotus, causing the entire dragon fire lotus country to roar. The country trembled violently. At the same time, the image of the dragon fire lotus country in the sky also started to tremble. The space trembled, and the countless flames that fell from the sky dimmed instantly. Roar, roar, roar. The 6 divine dragons in the surroundings charged up and directly charged at the image of the dragonfire lotus country. Bang! The golden and earth divine dragons swept out with their enormous dragon tails, and a terrifying collision sounded once again. A huge hole appeared in the sky again. Roar, roar. The other 4 divine dragons waved their dragon claws, wreaking havoc in the sky. The dragon's fire lotus divine kingdom was slowly torn apart, and holes that were hundreds of kilometers in size appear. "No, Dragon King, I'm going to kill you." Seeing that the divine kingdom in the sky was being torn apart one by one, the dragon god revealed an anxious expression. He swayed his huge body and charged toward Wang Xian, who was attacking the dragon's fire lotus. Roar! Wang Xian raised his head and looked at the dragon god with his majestic dragon head. His gigantic dragon tail swept across at a terrifying speed. Boom! The dragon god's dragon wings flickered with a golden luster. He did not show any signs of weakness as he slashed at the dragon tail. With a loud bang, the collision of their physical bodies caused the surrounding space to tremble. The dragon god's body flew backward into the sky at a terrifying speed. Roar! Wang Xian swayed his gigantic body and chased after him. 2 gigantic dragon claws clawed at his body. "I am a god. How can I not be a match for a mortal? I don't believe it. With my godly body, burn." The dragon god had a ferocious look on his face. His mouth was filled with blood as he roared crazily. The divine fire above his head was slowly burning towards the direction of the dragon wings. He burned his dragon body in exchange for an even more terrifying attack. At this moment, the dragon god was a little crazy. Today was the day he became a god, the day he looked down on all living things from above. However, not long after he became a god, a dragon king appeared and completely suppressed him. In fact, the other party hadn't even ignited the divine fire yet. How could he not be satisfied? How could he not be angry? He, the dignified dragon god, was actually not a match for an ordinary dragon king. No. Roar! 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 The burning of his wings gave him a terrifying strength. When he spread his dragon wings and flew over, the air was torn apart. In this world, he seemed to be the center. Roar! Wang Xian held his attention and slowly raised his dragon claws. He met the Dragon King directly at a speed that was no slower than his opponent. Boom! Wang Xian's dragon claws collided with the dragon god's dragon wings. An incomparably hot pain was felt. The dragon scales on the dragon claws began to melt under the dragon god's attack. However, the dragon god was not feeling well either. The burning dragon wings represented the consumption of his own flesh and blood. Even if he was a god, it would take some time for him to fully recover. Roar! Die! Wang Xian felt the heavy injuries on the dragon claws. He lowered his head slightly and the dragon head headed straight for him. That majestic and noble dragon horn displayed its sharpness for the first time. Bang! The dragon horn struck his chest heavily. Faced with such a powerful force, the body of the dragon god flew backward once again. Divine dragon, swing your tail. Wang Xian let out an angry roar. The dragon tail, which was as tall as a mountain, landed on the body of the dragon god abruptly. The divine fire on the head of the dragon god dimmed instantly. His body landed heavily on the ground. Chapter 1805. 1805 At the peak of the 1805 continent, below the transcendent king. Boom! A muffled sound of a collision resounded through the sky above the peak of the lofty heaven mountain. Following that, everyone saw the dragon god's body falling downwards at a terrifying speed. Hiss! The dragon god is about to be defeated. The dragon god is about to be defeated by the dragon king. Oh my god, this is a true defeat. This is a god, the only true god of our transcendent continent. Look at the fire lotus in the sky, it's about to be pierced through by the 6 divine dragons. When the crowd saw the falling dragon god, they were shocked. Boom! Just as everyone was staring with their eyes wide open, the dragon god's body crashed into a mountain on the peak of the lofty heaven mountain. He spread his wings and his body, which was 2,000 to 3,000 meters long, crashed into the mountain. His indestructible body caused the entire mountain to slowly crack. Rumble. Slowly, the tallest mountain on the transcendental continent fell to the ground. The dragon god's body sank deep into the mountain. Roar. Bang. 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 At this moment, the water god dragon's body was resisting the fire pillar in the sky and slowly flew to the top. The other 6 divine dragons were wreaking havoc on the dragonfire lotus phantom. The sun shone into the land again, and the phantom of the dragonfire lotus divine kingdom slowly collapsed. Floating in the sky, the dragonfire lotus within a 50-kilometer radius fell toward the ground. The divine kingdom that had just been raised high not long ago fell toward the ground. The fall of the divine kingdom seemed to represent the fall of the dragon god. Roar. Seeing the phantom of the dragonfire lotus divine kingdom completely collapse, the 7 divine dragons roared and flew toward the divine shadow dragon kingdom. Buzz. When the 7 divine dragons entered the divine shadow dragon kingdom, the virtual image of the entire dragon palace slowly solidified again. The divine shadow dragon kingdom moved and flew directly towards Wang Xian's position. Victory. Wang Xian looked at the dragon god who had knocked down the peak of the Aotian mountain and heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. After all, his opponent was a true god. It was not easy to defeat him. His body moved and transformed into a human form, sitting on the dragon throne of the divine shadow dragon palace. The divine shadow dragon palace flew towards the collapsed mountain peak, looking down at the dragon god from above. Cough, cough, cough. At this moment, the miserable dragon god, covered in blood, shook his body unwillingly. He coughed a few times and blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Only the skeleton of his 2 dragon wings was left. The spot on his stomach had completely caved in. Dragon god, what else do you have to say before you die? Wang Xian sat in the divine kingdom and looked down at him from above. He asked faintly. Cough, cough, cough. Such an arrogant and invincible posture made the dragon god feel that his chest had stagnated. He opened his mouth and spat out fresh blood. I am a true god. I will not fall. I will never fall. The dragon god stared at Wang Xian with bloodshot eyes as he growled softly. Even gods will fall. Wang Xian shook his head mockingly. With a thought, a gigantic dragon head emerged from the sky above the kingdom of Shenying. The dragon head was filled with a violent murderous aura. The dragon head that was 5,000 to 6,000 meters in size opened its gigantic mouth and swallowed the dragon god. No. The dragon god saw the dragon mouth that was about to devour him and felt the threat of death. He let out a desperate roar. However, at this moment, no one could save him, and no one could save him. The huge dragon mouth swallowed the dragon god into its stomach. Roar. The dragon head let out an excited roar and shrank back into the divine shadow dragon kingdom. Ding. Host has swallowed a wisp of divine fire creature. Obtained 500,000 divine crystals. Ding. Congratulations to host for increasing your level. You have reached level 7 of longevity. Name, Wang Xian. Race, Yin-Yang 5 elements divine dragon, Mandragon unity. Level 7 of longevity. 4th change of divine dragon transformation. Divine crystal, 35 421 200 000000. Supernatural ability, ruling over the water tribe that is lower than your own level. Devour living things to extract divine crystals. Control of the 5 elements. Cultivation method, divine dragon transformation. Supernatural ability, soul capture, spirit possession, Yin-Yang 5 elements dragon eyes. Aspect, 5 elements grinding, dragon kingdom in the palm, dragon head under the heavens, dragon body of 10,000 miles, Yin-Yang poles, Yin-Yang 5 elements arms bowl, divine dragon tail swing. Domain, divine shadow dragon kingdom. Dragon palace owned, level 5. Dragon palace members, 23,433. After the divine shadow dragon kingdom completely devoured the dragon god, the energy was immediately transferred back to Wang Xian's body. The energy of a god immediately increased Wang Xian's level. The divine shadow dragon kingdom behind him had a radius of 100 kilometers. Wang Xian's body was instantly filled with a destructive power. He closed his eyes slightly and adjusted to the sudden increase in his strength. A faint smile appeared on his face. Hiss. At this moment, when everyone below saw Wang Xian devouring the dragon god directly, they were all shocked. He has killed a god. The Dragon King has killed a god. Oh my god, the Dragon King is simply too strong. Too strong. Everyone was discussing in shock as their bodies trembled. Crack, crack, Crack. At this moment, the dragon fire lotus that had fallen to the ground slowly cracked open. The divine kingdom had collapsed. Woo woo woo. A wailing sound appeared out of nowhere in the sky that was more than 10,000 kilometers in circumference. The birth of a god, the heavens and earth congratulated. The fall of a god, the wailing of the heavens and earth. The power of a god could trigger the phenomena of the heavens and earth, and could move the heavens and earth. When everyone heard the wailing of the heavens and earth, they felt a sense of sadness. However, very quickly, everyone's faces revealed a trace of excitement and excitement. The dragon race had been exterminated, and the dragon god had died. This was a huge good thing for all the humans on the Transcendence continent, especially for the citizens of the Aoshan Empire. If the dragon god was still alive, they would be reduced to slaves, living like ants for generations. The Dragon King is invincible, the peak of the continent, the king of transcendence. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out, and everyone's gaze once again turned to look at the Dragon King sitting upright within the divine Shadow Dragon country. His majestic body was emitting a divine glow. It was an unrivaled power that could cause the fall of a god. It was the Dragon King who had saved all of them. We pay our respects to the Dragon King, at the top of the continent, the King of Extraordinaries. We pay our respects to the Dragon King, at the top of the continent, the King of Extraordinaries. At this moment, all the experts in the surrounding area immediately knelt down towards Wang Xian. They knelt on the ground, prostrating themselves and sincerely worshipping Wang Xian as they shouted loudly. At the peak of the continent, the King of Transcendence. An expert who could kill a god was qualified to be called the peak of the continent, the King of Transcendent. From today onwards, the Dragon King would be the legend of the entire Transcendence continent. At the same time, the Dragon King would also be the king of the entire Transcendence continent, the strongest king. The word Dragon King would definitely be praised and praised in the entire Transcendence continent today. Greetings, the king of the Transcendence continent, the Dragon King. Wang Xian heard the earth-shattering shouts from below. He slowly opened his eyes and scanned his surroundings. Chapter 1806. 1806. In 1806, Feng Luan became the emperor and the Dragon King of the ocean. Wang Xian landed in the Divine Kingdom and looked down at everyone below. He looked down at the peak of the Ao Tian mountain and everything in the center of the extraordinary mainland. He was high and mighty. For a full 10 years, he had been in the extraordinary mainland for a full 10 years. In these 10 years, he stood at the peak of this world. In these 10 years, he had gone all out and met many powerful opponents. Powerful mercenary groups, powerful empires, powerful sects, powerful empires, and powerful empires. And today, he killed the overlord of the continent, the dragon god of the dragon race, a god who ignited the divine fire and lifted up the divine kingdom. In the past 10 years, scenes appeared in his mind in the blink of an eye. Today, he finally looked down on this world and looked down on the entire planet. All beings, stand up. At the bottom, everyone was kneeling on the ground respectfully. Wang Xian didn't say anything, and they didn't dare to stand up either. With Wang Xian's current strength and influence, one word could decide a person's life and death. One word could destroy an influence. One word could make an influence rise. God, a true God, a God that was high and inviolable. Thank you, Dragon King. When everyone heard Wang Xian's words, they shouted loudly. One by one, they stood up slowly and looked up with respect. Wang Xian's figure moved and the divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom behind him disappeared. He floated in the sky and looked at the girls in Phoenix Pass and Shuqing. Little Xian. The girls shouted and flew toward him one by one. All the members of the Dragon Palace also flew behind him silently. Emperor Aoshan and Emperor Aoshan are dead. Feng Luan, you can take over the Aoshan Empire. Wang Xian looked at Feng Luan and said as he looked at the Nine-God Empire below. Mo Sha and the experts of the Nine-God Empire were standing there. Mo Sha, leave the Nine-God Empire to Feng Luan. You can assist her in the future, he said directly to Mo Sha who was below. Boss, can I join the Dragon Palace, boss? At this moment, Mo Sha shouted at Wang Xian with a face full of anticipation. Even though he had a rebellious personality, he was still extremely nervous at this moment. To be able to follow boss, what was the use of being the emperor of an empire? Sure. Wang Xian nodded his head. Mo Shao's personality was similar to the Bhe. However, he could enter the poison manufacturing department. Thank you, boss. Mo Shao looked excited and shouted loudly. He immediately flew behind Wang Xian. Xiao Xian, you want me to control the entire Transcendence continent? Feng Luan hesitated when she heard Wang Xian's words. If she was allowed to control the entire Transcendence continent, it meant that she would be the only empress in the entire Transcendence continent. She would be the empress of the entire Transcendence continent. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head. You will be the empress of the Transcendence continent and the Dragon Palace will control the ocean. Sure. Feng Luan pondered for a moment before nodding her head. From today onwards, Empress Feng Luan will be the empress of the Transcendence continent and the Dragon Palace will be the king of the ocean. Wang Xian floated in the sky and announced to everyone. His voice spread throughout the entire central continent. It's the Dragon King. Everyone responded loudly without the slightest objection. Furthermore, they were a little surprised that the Dragon King and the Empress were in control of the entire Transcendence continent. After all, this was the entire Transcendence continent and they had actually given it to the Empress. They could still accept the Empress's control in their hearts. The Empress was a very good monarch on the Transcendence continent, especially since they had witnessed the Empress's strength just now. She was at the half-step divine realm. In the entire Transcendence continent, apart from the Dragon King, no one was her match. Let's go. We'll make a trip to the Sea of Dragons. If nothing goes wrong, the Dragon Palace will be relocated to the Sea of Dragons. Wang Xian and the other girls said as they looked at Feng Luan, I need to take care of the land. I'll look for you guys when I'm done. Feng Luan said to Wang Xian and the rest. All right. Wang Xian nodded. With a wave of his arm, the divine kingdom of the dragon god, the dragonfire lotus, and all the corpses below flew towards him. Let's go. Roar. 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 Woo woo. The 9 dragons roared while Xiao Lan also let out an excited sound. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne and flew towards the Sea of Dragons. Feng Luan looked at Wang Xian and the rest as they left. A soul-stirring smile appeared on her face. The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace and the Empress of Dragon and Phoenix will be the ruler of our extraordinary continent in the future. This is a great thing for us humans. The Empress loves the people while the Dragon King only controls the sea. The Dragon Palace is too powerful. Even after a few 100,000 years, no faction will be able to reach the level of the Dragon Palace. Seeing the Dragon King and all the members of the Dragon Palace leave, everyone discussed in shock. Chirp, chirp, chirp. At this moment, a phoenix cry came out of Feng Luan's mouth. Everyone's heart trembled slightly as they looked at Feng Luan, their eyes filled with reverence. Greetings, Empress. After exterminating the entire Dragon Clan, the more than 300,000 corpses of the Dragon Clan's powerhouses will be added to the resources in the Sea of Dragons as well as the resources in the entire Transcendence continent. The strength of the Dragon Palace will receive a terrifying increase. Wang Xian, who was flying in the sky, was full of smiles. He was fiddling with a divine spark in his hand. It was the fire attribute divine spark of the dragon god. After digesting the corpses of the Dragon Clan, all the members of the Dragon Palace should have reached the realm of longevity. In addition to the resources in the Sea of Dragons, the Dragon Palace would receive another qualitative upgrade. The members of the Dragon Palace flew quickly. 3 days later, the Sea of Dragons appeared in everyone's sight. As the lair of the Dragon Clan, they occupied the place with the most abundant resources in the entire supernatural continent. Just by entering this sea area, one could discover that the spiritual energy here was more abundant than other places. All members of the Dragon Clan, gather all the resources in the Sea of Dragons. Coming to the center of the Sea of Dragons, Wang Xian ordered with his eyes glowing. It's the Dragon King. The eyes of the members of the Dragon Clan were also burning with excitement. This place had gathered the accumulated resources of the Dragon Clan for hundreds of thousands of years. The resources inside were absolutely terrifying. Ding. Congratulations to the host for unifying the extraordinary continent and ocean. You have completed the mission of unifying the ocean of 10,000 worlds. The reward is a dragon seed, the berserk dragon. At this moment, the system's voice sounded. Wang Xian was slightly taken aback before a glint flashed across his eyes. A dragon seed, the berserk dragon. Unifying the extraordinary continent and ocean this time actually rewarded the berserk dragon seed, the strongest dragon seed of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian's face was filled with excitement. The berserk dragon seed, fire, darkness, and thunder had 3 attributes. It was not an exaggeration to say that the berserk dragon seed could fight 3 levels higher. Even an ordinary divine dragon would not be a match for the berserk dragon seed. However, the berserk dragon seed is too powerful. With 3 attributes, it will be difficult to nurture a complete berserk dragon, Wang Xian thought to himself. He decided to study it properly after returning to the Dragon Palace. Chapter 1807. 1807. The ancestral tree of the 1807 Dragon Clan's treasure was mutated. Wang Xian floated in the sky and overlooked the entire sea of dragons. Each mountain peak contained a large number of treasures. With his yin-yang and 5 elements dragon eyes, he could see that there were thousands of longevity-level spirit trees. One could imagine how terrifying the treasures of the Dragon Clan would be. The group of girls entered the mountain peaks in high spirits and searched for all kinds of treasures as though they were lottery winners. The dragons liked shiny items, and so did the group of girls. From time to time, pleasant voices could be heard. Wang Xian floated on the sea and smiled. He looked at the center of the mountain. That mountain peak should be the Dragon God Valley, the place of this divine kingdom. He looked at the divine kingdom that was floating behind him and then looked at the broken mountain peak in the center. Wang Xian moved his body and flew directly towards the broken mountain peak. The strength of the divine kingdom of the dragon god had completely exceeded Wang Xian's expectations. After entering the ocean, he sized up the interior of the broken mountain peak. What a huge volcano! This should be the largest volcano in the entire Transcendence continent. Wang Xian entered and looked at the extremely spacious interior. His face was filled with astonishment. The entire interior was like a flaming space. No wonder it could make the fire dragons of the dragon race so powerful. It could allow the dragon race to produce an endless stream of half-step godly state expert. It was all because of this volcano. Inside the volcano, there were many fire spirits. At least 100,000 fire spirits were frolicking inside like fishes. Just these fire spirits are a rare treasure. To the fire hammer race of the Dragon Palace, this is a huge opportunity. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings. Reporting to Dragon King, a mysterious treasure has been found here. At this moment, a shout was heard. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. His figure flashed and disappeared. Buzz. His figure appeared near the periphery of the Sea of Dragons. Beside him, a dragon guard was staring ahead with a face full of fear. Dragon King, look ahead. What is this? When the dragon guard saw Wang Xian, he pointed to the front and said with a face full of shock. The Sea of Thunder, the land of death. He looked at the huge words on the stone tablet at the side, and his eyes were sparkling. He looked into the Sea of Dragons, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. At the depth of more than 100,000 meters at the edge of the Sea of Dragons, the space in front of him was extremely mystical. A territory covered by lightning had an area of about 50 kilometers. The power of the lightning in front of them was emitting a power that made even Wang Xian's heart palpitate. The lightning was extremely strange. It shone brightly like branches. From time to time, there would be lightning flowers blooming. That's right. His gaze focused as he stared at the center of the lightning territory. A small tree, a 1-meter-tall tree, and only one trunk. Wang Xian realized that all the lightning came from this small tree. He hesitated for a moment and reached his hand into the tree. Crack, crack. The moment Wang Xian reached his finger into the tree, a terrifying destructive force was emitted. This caused Wang Xian's expression to change drastically. Buzz. At this moment, a strong suction force was emitted from Wang Xian's heart. This stunned him instantly. Following that, Wang Xian could feel the ancestral tree trembling. Is this another divine tree of the level of the soul-returning tree, eternal wood, and the Changshu tree? Wang Xian's eyes were filled with joy. Wang Xian could be said to have witnessed the strength of the ancestral tree. It was able to absorb an eternal wood branch, a soul-returning tree branch, and the dying Changshu tree. This allowed it to unleash its original terrifying ability. Due to the existence of the ancestral tree, the Dragon Palace possessed the ability to revive from the dead. It was because of the ancestral tree that the Fire Phoenix Dragon Seed and Starwood Dragon Seed were born. Just the name of the ancestor of all trees showed how extraordinary it was. The incomparably violent lightning entered his heart and surged like energy. At this moment, in the distant Dragon Palace, the ancestral tree was trembling as if it had encountered something that made it extremely excited. The unceasing flow of energy caused it to emit a bright light. The ancestral tree, which was originally only a few dozen meters in size, was growing at a terrifying speed. The branches of the soul-returning wood, the endless branches of the tree, and the branches of the evergreen tree were also continuing to grow. Wang Xian could feel the longing and excitement of the ancestral tree. He slowly closed his eyes and sensed the changes of the ancestral tree in the Dragon Palace. At the bottom of the Sea of Dragons, the mystical Nirvana Lightning Sea, which was once called the Land of Death by the dragons and even the gods of the supernatural continent, was disappearing at a terrifying speed. The Nirvana Lightning Tree, which was located in the middle of the Nirvana Lightning Sea, seemed to have been pulled by an invisible force and flew towards Wang Xian. Buzz! The 5-meter-long Nirvana Lightning Tree flew in front of Wang Xian and directly sank into his heart. Ding! Congratulations, host, for obtaining the Nirvana Lightning Tree. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Another powerful divine tree. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. The dragon tribe's harvest this time was simply too great. A divine tree was far more important than any other treasure. Buzz! At this moment, Wang Xian sensed that the ancestral tree in the Dragon Palace was growing rapidly. In just a few minutes, it had grown to a size of a few hundred meters. The endless wood, the soul-returning wood, the Vikhang tree, and the Nirvana Lightning Tree actually bore fruit after fruit. There were 2 fruits on each branch and they were emitting a magical glow. These fruits are? Wang Xian was slightly surprised. He stared at the few fruits and his heart was burning with passion. However, as he didn't see them with his own eyes, he didn't know the specific effects of the fruit. Shu Qing, Qingyu, I will transfer the Dragon Palace here. Wang Xian could not hold it in any longer. He shouted at the girls around him and disappeared in a flash. With his current strength, he was comparable to a god who had ignited 2 wisps of divine fire. The distance of his teleportation could reach up to 20,000 kilometers. Such speed was also the ability of a god to traverse the void. When he arrived at the Dragon Palace, it only took him 5 to 6 minutes. After entering the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian immediately came to the Dragon King's hall. The moment he entered the Dragon King's hall, he saw the ancestral tree that was 400 to 500 meters in size growing above the dragon throne. There were 8 fruits on the ancestral tree. Each of the fruits exuded divinity. Sensing the energy of the 8 fruits, Wang Xian took a deep breath and took out the godhead of the dragon god to take a look. The energy in the fruits was no weaker than this godhead. Eternal fire embryo. After consuming it, one will obtain the origin of fire. Soul-returning embryo. After absorbing the souls of the dead, one can revive them. Taking the ordinary embryo improves one's comprehension and spirituality. Nirvana lightning embryo. After consuming it, one will obtain the origin of lightning. Hiss. When Wang Xian saw the abilities of the fruits, he took a deep breath. Heaven-defying. This was simply too heaven-defying. Not to mention reviving from the dead, improving one's comprehension and spirituality. Just by consuming the eternal fire embryo and the Nirvana lightning embryo, one would be able to obtain the body of origin. These fruits could be called one of the most heaven-defying fruits in the universe. Chapter 1808. 1808 1808 Berserk Dragon Species. I wonder how long it will take for these heaven-defying fruits to bear one. Wang Xian stared at these embryo fruits with burning eyes. After his previous research, he realized that the embryo fruits had an extremely important use. It could replace the divine spark and allow the dragon clan's dragon species to evolve. Now, there was only one true peak dragon species in the dragon clan, and that was Ao Yarrow. The thorned dragon seed was the most powerful dragon seed known to assassinate the divine dragon clan. The second was the starwood dragon seed. The starwood dragon seed evolved from the ancestral tree, and there was no record of such a dragon seed in the divine dragon clan. However, a dual-element dragon seed could definitely be called a peak dragon seed. However, the fire element of the starwood dragon seed was suppressed now. When they reached the divine realm, they would have a qualitative breakthrough and completely unleash the fire and wood element. The third element was the fire phoenix dragon species. The fire phoenix dragon species was obtained by the dragon palace because of the phoenix. Although it only had one element, it was only slightly weaker than the peak dragon species in terms of strength. After that was the fire gold dragon species. The fire hammer clan was the strongest forged dragon species known to the divine dragon clan. It was also a peak dragon species. However, if they wanted to reach the peak dragon species, they needed to fuse with the divine spark of the metal element. The next dragon seed of the dragon palace was a very ordinary existence with a single attribute. However, among the other dragon seeds, there was a special existence, the dragon guard. The dragon guard was Ao Jian and the others who cultivated the heartless sword principle. Their strength could not be treated as ordinary dragon seeds. According to the strength of the heartless sword principle, if Ao Jian and the others could cultivate the heartless sword principle, they would definitely not be weaker than the berserk dragon seed. Unifying the supernatural continent and obtaining the berserk dragon species from the dragon palace will allow the demon combat division to evolve into the berserk dragon species. The berserk dragon species required 3 attributes: fire, darkness, and lightning. Ao Chitian belonged to the darkness attribute. By consuming the inexhaustible fire embryo and the nirvana lightning embryo, he could evolve into the berserk dragon species. I wonder what other treasures the dragon tribe has. Let's head over first. Wang Xian squinted his eyes slightly and immediately controlled the dragon palace to move towards the location of the Sea of Dragons. A level 5 dragon palace did not have a long teleportation distance. It would take at least 2 days to get there. If the dragon palace wanted to upgrade to level 6, it would not be as easy as before. In the past, it would only require some materials. But now, upgrading to level 6 required 9 divine kingdoms with 9 different attributes. The difficulty of the upgrade had increased by more than 10 times. He could either forge the divine kingdoms himself, or he could plunder the divine sparks of other gods. Wang Xian could even plunder the divine sparks of other gods with his strength, not to mention forging them himself. However, where could there be any gods? He was already an invincible existence in the entire Transcendence continent. Buzz. 2 days later, Wang Xian moved the Dragon Palace into the Sea of Dragons. Around him, the members of the Dragon Palace had already plundered all the treasures in the Sea of Dragons. On a mountain peak located in the middle, behind the group of girls, there were all kinds of shiny gemstones. Beside them, Duan Jinming was forging all kinds of jewelry for them. Move all the treasures into the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian placed the Dragon Palace in the center and said to all the members of the Dragon Palace, "It's the Dragon King." Prime Minister Gui and the rest responded immediately. "Xiao Xian, look at these jewelry. My God, there are so many shiny gemstones in the entire Dragon Clan. It's simply too beautiful." The group of girls flew over excitedly and shouted with joy. "Beautiful, beautiful." Wang Xian looked over with a smile on his face. His gaze swept across the group of girls. Other than his beloved sister, the other 8 girls, Guan Shuqing, who had been with him the longest, had been with him for more than 10 years. More than 10 years of companionship had made it difficult for them to separate from each other. The Transcendence continent has been unified. Next, we can tour the entire Transcendence continent and bring you to eat all the delicious food and drinks on the entire continent. Wang Xian stroked the heads of the group of girls and said with a smile, "Wow, that's great." The group of girls were excited. In the entire Transcendence continent, they had visited less than 1/5 of the places. In this world, The Dragon King was already the king. They could be said to be existences like queens who could tour the entire continent as they wish. This was undoubtedly the happiest thing for the girls who loved shopping and eating. "Brother, when are we leaving?" Xiao Yu said excitedly. "We will go out to play after we settle the matters in the Dragon Palace." Wang Xian pinched Xiao Yu's cheeks and was in a good mood. They could play without worries for a period of time. "Prime Minister Gui, use the resources we obtained this time to improve the strength of the members of the Dragon Palace. Also, call Ao Chitian over." Wang Xian held the hands of the group of girls and walked towards the Dragon King's palace. He transmitted his voice to Prime Minister Gui. "It's the Dragon King. Dragon King, all the treasures have been placed in the treasury of the Dragon Palace. In addition, there are many longevity-grade spirit trees and spiritual herbs in the Sea of Dragon. We will expand the medicinal garden of the Dragon Palace and plant them. With the ancestral tree, we will have an endless supply of spiritual fruits in the future." When Wang Xian and the rest arrived at the Dragon King's hall, Prime Minister Gui led Ao Chitian over. "All right, we will plant some spiritual herbs and spiritual trees that have yet to mature." Wang Xian nodded. "You lead the members of the Dragon Palace to improve their strength. Chitian, come over here." Wang Xian instructed them and walked to the front of the dragon throne. Wow, how did the ancestral tree undergo such a huge change? It even grew fruits. The group of girls noticed the ancestral tree and were astonished. The current ancestral tree was a few hundred meters in size. It stood at the back of the dragon throne and looked extremely mystical. Wang Xian walked over and plucked the eternal fire embryo and the nirvana lightning embryo from it. "Consume this." After passing the fruit to Ao Chitian, Wang Xian continued, "Let's go to the dragon transformation pool at the back. It's the Dragon King." Ao Chitian nodded respectfully. The current Ao Chitian was less violent compared to when he first became a disciple of the Dragon Palace. He looked rather wise. However, this was only on the surface. It was only because he had been taught by the civil officials of the Dragon Palace over the past 10 years that he was filled with wisdom. When it came to a real battle, he was still the same Ao Chitian who fought against the heaven and earth. Enter the dragon transformation pool. When he came to the side of the dragon transformation pool and saw Ao Chitian consuming 2 embryo fruits, Wang Xian said to him directly, "Yes." Ao Chitian jumped straight into the dragon transformation pool. Evolution, Berserk Dragon Seed. Wang Xian looked at the information in the dragon transformation pool and directly upgraded Ao Chitian. "Will it take a month?" Looking at the time of the evolution, Wang Xian was not too surprised. He took out the information that Prime Minister Gui had just given him. The information was all about the resources that he had obtained this time. The dragon race had accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years. They had so many treasures that even Wang Xian felt a little terrifying. "These resources can allow me to advance another level." Wang Xian was full of smiles. Chapter 1809. 1809 New Era, Glorious and Prosperous. Name, Wang Xian. Race, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Divine Dragon, Mandragon Unity. Level, Longevity 8th rank, the 4th change of the Divine Dragon Transformation. Divine Crystal, 3354211000000000. Supernatural Ability, Ruling the Water Tribe below one's own level. Devouring Creatures to extract divine crystals. Control of the 5 elements. Cultivation Method, Divine Dragon Transformation. Supernatural Ability, Soul Capture, Spirit Possession, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Dragon Eyes. Aspect, 5 Elements Millstone, Dragon Kingdom in the palm, Dragon Head under the heavens, Dragon Body of 10,000 miles, Yin-Yang Poles, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Arms Bowl, Divine Dragon Tail Swing. Domain, Divine Shadow Dragon Kingdom. Dragon Palace, Level 5. Members of the Dragon Palace, 23,433. A month later, Wang Xian stood in the Dragon King Palace and looked at his attributes. His face was full of smiles. "With the sun, moon, and stars in my hand, there is no one like me in this world." Wang Xian grasped the strength in his hand. Recently, his level had increased the fastest. After absorbing a large amount of resources from the Dragon Clan, his level had once again received a huge increase. Level 8 of longevity was very, very close to igniting the divine fire. With his current strength, he was completely comparable to a god who had ignited 3 wisps of divine fire. On this extraordinary continent, he dared to say that he was invincible. Ao Chitien's improvement should be over. He looked down at Ao Chitien's figure. His 20-meter-long violent body, fire, lightning, and darkness energy circulated around his body. Whether it was fire, lightning, or darkness, they were all the more violent of the 9 attribute. When the 3 attributes merged together, how terrifying would the power be? Roar. A low roar came from the dragon transformation pool. Ao Chitien, who was in a deep sleep, suddenly opened his eyes like an awakened demon. 3 Goyu slowly appeared in his extremely pale pupils. Fire, lightning, and darkness. 3 Goyu appeared in his eyes and were connected together. These mysterious pupils looked extremely strange. The 3 Goyu that were connected together also appeared on Ao Chitien's chest. An extremely violent aura came from his body, as expected of the strongest berserk dragon species in the Dragon Palace. According to the records of the Divine Dragon Clan, there were only 20 berserk dragon species at their peak. Now, I have the Dragon Palace that has merged with the insect nest. I can give birth to a large number of berserk dragons. If I have enough fruits and godheads in the future, I can upgrade the Thunder Tribe to a berserk dragon species. Wang Xian sensed the violent power in Ao Chitien's body and thought to himself, "Greetings, Dragon King." At this moment, Ao Chitien, who flew out from the Dragon Palace, shrunk to 2 meters in size and knelt down before Wang Xian. "Use all your strength to attack me." Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he ordered Ao Chitien. "It's the Dragon King." Ao Chitien nodded and clenched his fists. Crack, crack. In an instant, an explosive sound was heard from his fist. The surrounding air began to explode. Bang! An attack with an endless destructive force was directed at him. Boom! Wang Xian raised his palm to block Ao Chitien's attack. His face was filled with astonishment. The strength of level 8 longevity is almost comparable to the ordinary attack of the dragon god back then. His full-strength attack is comparable to a wisp of divine fire. Wang Xian's eyes were filled with shock. Ao Chitien, who was now at level 8 longevity, could rival a god with his full-strength attack. It could be said that he was fighting against a god who was 3 levels above him. As expected of the dragon seed with the strongest attack power of the divine dragons, Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement. If Ao Chitien were to advance by 1 level, he would be able to easily slaughter the dragon god back then. The fruits on the ancestral tree could also be used to nurture a berserk dragon seed. He hesitated for a moment but decided not to cultivate any more. Those fruits were too precious. He had to determine how long it would take for the ancestral tree to produce one and then consider how to use it. Dragon King, Empress Feng Luan is here. At this moment, Lady Ao came to report. "All right, I got it." Wang Xian nodded his head and gestured to Ao Chitien before flying into the Dragon King's hall. A month had passed. The Dragon Palace had absorbed the resources available to the Dragon Clan. The weakest one in the Dragon Palace had already reached the 1st level of longevity. All the leaders had reached the 8th level of longevity. The current strength of the Dragon Palace was 4 to 5 times stronger than the previous Dragon Clan. The unification ceremony of the Dragon Phoenix Empire? We have to go too. Speaking of which, we are the Goddess Elder group of the Dragon Phoenix Empire. Of course, we can't miss such a grand occasion. It just so happens that the Dragon Palace is almost done with their business. Next, we will begin our journey to the extraordinary continent. Wang Xian had just arrived at the Dragon King's hall when he heard the excited voices of the girls. "Are you done?" Wang Xian looked at Feng Luan, who was surrounded in the middle, and asked with a smile, "How can it be so easy to unify the entire continent?" 2 days later, the Dragon Phoenix Empire will hold a unification ceremony. After that, we will basically be done with it. Feng Luan shook her head at Wang Xian and said, "Come over to the Dragon Palace for the grand ceremony 2 days later. Only then can it be considered as living up to its name." "All right, I don't have to deal with the matters of the Dragon Palace now. I can relax for a period of time. Wang Xian nodded his head. I might be able to relax for a period of time as well. Feng Luan smiled mysteriously and said, if there's nothing else, let's head over now. Okay, sure. Wang Xian nodded his head. Let's go. Our goddess elder group will be appearing at the ceremony in 2 days. Let's hurry up and pick out some clothes. The group of girls spoke enthusiastically. Dragon Guards, Heavenly Eye Arrow Division, follow me to the Dragon Palace. Roar, roar, roar. Soon, 9 dragons of level 8 longevity pulled a dragon pride out of the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Guards and 3,000 members of the Heaven's Eye Arrow Division followed behind them as they flew towards the imperial capital of the Dragon Phoenix Empire. The imperial capital was currently located at the peak of the Aotian Mountain, the center of the continent. Wang Xian and the rest sat in the middle of the dragon pride that was a few hundred meters in size. It was no different from a house. This was specially built by the Fire Hammer clan for their Dragon King and Dragon Queen. Although it wasn't as majestic as the Dragon Throne, with Wang Xian's current strength, he didn't need to care about these external objects anymore. In a day's time, the group arrived at the main peak in the middle of the Aotian Mountain peak. At this moment, countless people were gathered in the surrounding areas. The number of people gathered this time was several times more than the time when the Dragon Clan went to the Aoshan Empire. The entire area within a few thousand kilometers was abnormally festive. The Dragon Phoenix Empire unified the Transcendence continent, and all the creatures and experts of the entire continent came to witness this historic moment. When the 9 flood dragons pulled a dragon pride along, followed by the members of the Dragon Guard's Heavenly Eye Arrow Division, they arrived. Below, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Soon after, everyone below bowed in that direction. This was the respect for the strongest person on the continent, and also the respect for God. Chapter 1810. 1810 New Era, glorious and prosperous. The Dragon King is here. I didn't expect him to attend the unification ceremony of the Dragon Phoenix Empire tomorrow. It's all thanks to the Dragon King that the Empress was able to stand at the peak again in only 10 years, and even unify the Transcendence continent. The Dragon King only rules the ocean, and the continent belongs to the Empress. I wonder what the relationship between the Empress and the Dragon King is. Seeing the people from the Dragon Palace landing on the main peak, everyone whispered among themselves. A month ago, when the news of the Dragon God igniting the divine fire to become a god and then being killed by the Dragon King on the spot spread to other parts of the Transcendence continent, it immediately caused a huge sensation. Hundreds of thousands of gods had not been born on the Transcendence continent. As for gods, they only had a vague understanding of them in the historical records. Even if they only had a little bit of information, they knew how powerful gods were and how high they were. Now that the dragon god of the transcendental continent had become a god, he was killed directly. How could it not be shocking? In addition, there was news of a great battle here. The world-destroying attack that covered an area of more than 10,000 kilometers shocked everyone on the continent. In an instant, the name of the Dragon King of the entire transcendental continent was like thunder that resounded in everyone's ears. In order to express their respect for the Dragon King, countless forces had even built deity statues. In just a short month, the Dragon King's deity statues had spread throughout the entire Transcendence continent. This person was a living god of the Transcendence continent. He was an existence that could kill the dragon god who had ignited the divine fire. Other than the invincible dragon race, the Emperor's strength was also widely spread. The terrifying combat strength of a half-step deity could easily kill a powerhouse at the peak of the dragon race. No one had any objections to the Dragon King's announcement that the Dragon Phoenix Empire would unify the entire continent and the Dragon Palace would be in charge of the ocean. In front of the power of the gods, they knew that they were no different from ants. If they resisted, they would only die. Moreover, everyone knew that the Dragon Phoenix Empress could be called the Eternal Empress. She was well known for her governance and was deeply loved by the people. Dragon King, Dragon Queen. In the main hall of the lofty Heaven Mountain peak, Feng Yun bowed and shouted with a smile when she saw Wang Xian and the rest. The current fire cloud sparrow tribe was like the sun in the sky in the entire Transcendence continent. As the Empress's most trusted and closest subordinate, the Dragon and Phoenix Empire had unified the entire Transcendence continent. Their fire cloud sparrow tribe had similarly risen. Even if there were many forces that were stronger than the Fire Lark clan, they had to treat them with respect. After all, this was the Fire Lark clan that had waited for the Empress for more than 1,000 years and had almost been exterminated for the sake of the Empress. Wang Xian smiled and nodded at Feng Yun. He had always admired the entire Fire Lark clan. Personal guard Feng, please call Long Xiaotian, He Yuan, He Suiqing, and Mu Xie over. Tell them that I have an invitation, Wang Xian said to her. For this trip, apart from seeing an empire standing at the peak, he also had to catch up with some friends on the mainland. After all, the Transcendence continent was not his home. He did not know when he would have to go back. Earth. It's the Dragon King. Feng Yun nodded respectfully and walked out immediately. Xiao Xian, do you want to give Mu Xie, who once saved your life, a position? How about the princess of the empire? Feng Luan looked at Wang Xian and asked him. Sure. Now that the Nine-God Empire has disbanded, let's make her the princess of the empire and enjoy a lifetime of wealth and honor. Wang Xian nodded his head. All right. This time, I will carry out a huge reform in the mainland. I will establish a power structure in the extraordinary mainland and implement democratic elections. Feng Luan looked at Wang Xian and the group of girls before she said with a smile. Her words stunned Wang Xian and the group of girls. Reform? Democracy? Wasn't this imitating some of the order on Earth? If we do this, it will greatly weaken the rights of the strong. I'm afraid some of the family forces will be dissatisfied. Wang Xian was stunned for a moment before he continued. However, if we really do this, it will greatly promote the development of the supernatural continent. That's right. Doing so would shake the foundations of some powerful forces. However, there is a huge benefit. In this era, everyone can become a dragon. As long as one has talent, everyone can stand out. Moreover, once this is implemented, I don't have to go through so much trouble. I don't even have to manage it, Feng Luan said with a smile. Her eyes were shining with an inexplicable luster. Imitating the management methods of some countries on Earth to manage the entire extraordinary continent, although it would completely break the rules of the extraordinary continent, she could foresee that in the next period of time, the strength of everyone on the extraordinary continent would receive a huge increase. By publicizing all kinds of cultivation methods and combat techniques, everyone could become a dragon. She had consulted Prime Minister Gui not long ago about this method and asked him to help her formulate a detailed rule. Prime Minister Gui was born on Earth. Later on, he studied all the books on Earth and was knowledgeable. He had given her great help in the reform aspect. With our abilities, we can indeed do it. This is a great blessing for the entire Transcendence continent. Wang Xian nodded his head in agreement. I haven't announced this yet. I plan to announce it on the spot tomorrow. Then, I will start to establish departments. Those powerful forces and powerhouses can join each department. Firstly, there's the Law Enforcement Department, which is made up of a group of powerhouses. Secondly, the Regulatory Department can change the Demon Hunting Hiring Association to. Feng Luan spoke with confidence. It was obvious that she had already made a plan this month. All right, just remember to stand guard tomorrow. Xu Qing and I will go and pick out tomorrow's clothes. After Feng Luan spoke for a while, she pulled the group of girls and said, Sister Feng Luan, help me pick out the clothes first. My father should be here. I will go and meet him. Ling Jian'er said to them and left with a smile on her face. All of a sudden, all the girls left. He was the only one standing there. Wang Xian shook his head speechlessly. He sat at the side with a smile on his face and began to enjoy his tea. The peak of the Aotian mountain was the center of the central continent, the highest peak on the continent. In the past, the capital of the Aoshan Empire was located around the peak of the mountain. Its coverage area was about 3,000 kilometers. At this moment, on the bustling streets, Long Xiaotian, He Yuan, and He Suiqing were walking on the streets, touring this majestic region. The dense crowd of pedestrians made the surroundings seem a little crowded. Make way, it's the Fire Cloud Personal Guards. It's the members of the Fire Cloud Personal Guards. At this moment, voices came from the front, and more than a dozen Fire Cloud Personal Guards walked over. You must be Long Xiaotian, young Master He Yuan, and Ms. He Suiqing. A group of Fire Cloud Guards walked over and said directly to Long Xiaotian and the others, "Hey, it's us." They were slightly stunned and immediately nodded. "The Dragon King invites you, please." The Fire Cloud Guards respectfully invited them. Chapter 1811. 1811 New Era, under glorious prosperity. The Dragon King invites you. When Long Xiaotian, He Yuan, and He Suiqing heard the words of the Fire Cloud Guard, they were slightly stunned, and then their eyes lit up with joy. The Dragon King invites you, Big Brother Long, Big Brother He, hurry up and go. When the young middle-aged man who followed Long Xiaotian heard these 4 words, his eyes revealed a strong envy, and he immediately said to them. The people around them were more anxious than the 3 of them. All right. Please lead the way, Personal Guard Huayun. He Yuan Long Xiaotian, He Suiqing, and the other 2 nodded quickly. The Dragon King invited them. Just these 4 words were a supreme honor to anyone. It was the same even for He Yuan Long Xiaotian, He Suiqing, and the others. The last time they met was when the Dragon Phoenix Empire was established. At that time, it was already a great honor for them for Wang Xian to meet them. Now, their former friend and brother had become a god. He was the god of the continent and the strongest person on the continent. Even the dragon god was beheaded. They were from 2 completely different worlds. However, they did not expect the Dragon King to send someone to invite them over this time. It was a great honor. The 3 of them looked at each other and walked towards the main peak of Aotian Mountain excitedly. Then, who are those 3 young men and women? Oh my god, they can actually make the Dragon King invite them over. Oh my god, what are their identities? According to rumors, before the Dragon King rose to power, he had a few friends in that vast area. Could they be those 3 people? They've reached the sky in 1 step, the Dragon King's friends, oh my god. Shocked and envious voices came from the surroundings. Even their backs were filled with respect as they looked at He Yuan and the others, just as everyone was extremely shocked. At a lofty mountain peak where the previous 9 God Empires experts were located, more than a dozen Fire Cloud Personal Guards also arrived and found Mu Se. When she heard the Dragon King's invitation, Mu Se's mouth was slightly agape as she slowly nodded. "Seer, go quickly. Don't let the Dragon King delay you." "That's right, Seer. Follow the Fire Cloud Guards and hurry over." Beside Mu Se, her father, who had ignored her and even used her for a marriage alliance, spoke respectfully to her. Around them, there were the gods from the 9 God Empire who had heard the news. They were also extremely respectful towards Mu Se as they said with friendly faces. Yes. Mu Se nodded. She was still slightly uncomfortable with the friendliness and respect from her father and the surrounding experts. Especially recently, the gods who were once high and mighty in the empire had come over from time to send her gifts and greeting. She could hold them in her hands to prevent them from falling, or she could hold them in her mouth to prevent them from melting. She knew that all of this was because of the person she had once saved by accident, the Dragon King. The Dragon King had slaughtered the gods and unified the continent. With her current status, even a longevity expert would have to be respectful when they met. After all, a longevity expert who was high and mighty on the continent could be easily killed by the Dragon Palace. As he watched Mu Se leave, the former experts of the 9 God Empire were also impressed by her luck. It was not an exaggeration to call her the son of luck. Dragon King, a few young masters and ladies have arrived and are arranged to be in the room next door. In the main peak, Fengyun walked in and said to Wang Xian, "Are you here? I'll go over now." Wang Xian nodded and went straight to the room next door. When He Yuan, Long Xiaotian, and the rest saw Wang Xian walking in, they were slightly excited and nervous. "Haha, why? Are you so restrained when you see me?" Wang Xian smiled and walked over. After a few conversations, they finally relaxed. The last time when Wang Xian destroyed the empire of 10,000 demons, he had found a longevity-level bloodline for Long Xiaotian. Now, His strength was close to He Yuan. Wang Xian gave them some weapons and equipment and chatted with them for more than an hour. He still had to settle down his friends. After the ceremony ends tomorrow and I bring a group of girls to tour the extraordinary continent, it's time for me to return to Earth. An hour later, He Yuan and the rest left. Wang Xian muttered to himself. When he walked out of the room, the sky had already darkened. Standing at the main peak, he could look down at the surrounding fireworks. The entire main peak had been transformed into the Empress's palace. Other than the fire cloud personal guards, there was no one else. Wang Xian was walking on the stairs between the mountains when he suddenly saw a beautiful figure standing in front of him. She was dressed in a fiery red phoenix robe and wore a phoenix crown on her head. She stood there and looked down at the land in front of her. Hey! Feng Luan, where are Shu Qing and the rest? When Wang Xian saw Feng Luan dressed up elegantly like a goddess, he couldn't help but take a few more glances at her and ask. They are picking out clothes for Jian Er. They said that they will give you a surprise later. Feng Luan turned around and looked at Wang Xian. A smile appeared on her face. After looking at him for more than 10 seconds, she turned around and said, "Thank you, Xiao Xian. Do we still need to thank you?" Wang Xian couldn't help but walk to Feng Luan's side and stand beside her. "Of course we need to thank you. What else can we do? I don't have anything to repay you with. I can only say it verbally." Feng Luan smiled. In the past, even though she had great ambitions, she never thought that she would unify the entire supernatural continent. However, the entire continent was under her feet now. Everything was because of this man beside her. When she was standing at the peak, she suddenly felt that the #1 empress of all time was only SOSO. Cough cough. Wang Xian sniffed the fragrance that came from beside him. His heart was slightly agitated. Among the group of girls, Feng Luan's beauty could not be said to be #1. However, this noble and inviolable temperament was something that the other girls did not possess. When he thought of this, Wang Xian could not help but fantasize about other things. "Actually, it's not that I can't repay you." Wang Xian suddenly raised his eyebrows and placed his palm on Feng Luan's shoulder subconsciously. "Huh!" Feng Luan's body trembled and her face turned slightly red. She quickly turned her head to the side and did not dare to look at him. "Then, how should I repay you?" She pretended not to care and asked. "That's easy." Wang Xian was also pretending to stand there. However, his palm subconsciously slid downwards. "Your hand." Feng Luan quickly felt that something was wrong. Her face quickly turned red as she gritted her teeth and said coldly, "What's wrong, Empress? Can't you repay me with your flesh? I'll go and talk to Shu Qing and the rest. Let's see if I can get another wife." Wang Xian suddenly sped up his speech and increased the strength in his palm. Following that, his figure disappeared in an instant. He ran away after touching her and she was the Empress of the same world. This was really exciting. No one in the entire Transcendence continent dared to imagine this scene. The Dragon King was actually so wretched. Chapter 1812. 1812. The end of 1812. Supernatural Continent. "Xiao Xian, why are you smiling here? Your smile is so perverted." Wang Xian, who had teleported into the room, sniffed his hand. He looked perverted. At this moment, the puzzled voices of a few girls could be heard from the side. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He immediately restrained his expression and looked at the few girls. However, when he turned around and looked over, he was instantly stunned. Noble, beautiful, and alluring. Fat hoop, swallow thin. Everyone was wearing noble and beautiful long robes. Their temperament had improved by a few levels. Nothing much. "Xiao Yu, go look for Feng Lingtian first. Your sisters-in-law and I have something important to attend to," Wang Xian said in all seriousness. P2. However, Xiao Yu rolled her eyes at him and flew out. "You." The group of girls naturally knew what he was going to do. They looked at him speechlessly. Hee hee. Wang Xian smiled and transformed into a werewolf and pounced on her. Outside, Feng Luan's expression kept changing. She took a deep breath and walked inside. When she reached the door, she stopped. Her face turned from red to green. The moonlight was beautiful. Today was a grand occasion for the entire Transcendence continent. At the foot of the peak of the Aotian mountain, the lights were bright. It was destined to be a sleepless night. Everyone was looking forward to the unification ceremony of the continent tomorrow and the major reform mentioned by the Empress. For Wangxian, the spring breeze passed very quickly. On the second day, the entire main peak was bustling with activity. The army of the Dragon Phoenix Empire and countless citizens were gathered at the side. At the foot of the main peak, there was a huge square. In front of the square, there was a high platform erected. In the square, some powerful family forces stood in a row in front. Just the people from these family forces occupied the entire square. After all, they were the powerhouses of the entire continent. Outside the plaza, there were hundreds of millions of humans and demonic beasts gathered. The continent is unified. Our transcendent continent hasn't been unified for hundreds of thousands of years. I heard that our Empress is about to become a god. Perhaps only a god can manage the entire continent. I wonder what important announcement the Empress will make today. In the plaza, the families and experts from the various large factions were discussing in hushed voices. The unification of the continent might have a great impact on them. The fire cloud guards are coming out. The Empress might be coming. Everyone, quiet down. At this moment, the members of the fire cloud guards flew down from the main peak. The square and the surrounding areas were all silent. They looked up at the mountain peak and quietly waited for the Empress to appear. Roar! Roar! At noon, a low roar sounded from the main peak. The voice was filled with endless majesty. This is. Everyone trembled slightly. Their pupils constricted and they hurriedly raised their heads in shock. This is. Dragon King. On the main peak, a divine dragon with a body of 8,000 meters let out a low roar. He circled around the main peak and slowly flew down. On the dragon god's head, the Empress, who was dressed in a fiery red wind cannon, stood in the middle. She took a step back and 9 women stood at the back. Hua hua hua. When the dragon god was coming down, the swordsmen holding golden swords and the archers holding longbows were standing neatly in the sky. From their bodies, everyone could feel a strong pressure. Hiss, the Dragon King actually carried the Empress directly here. Is he supporting the women? The Dragon King is showing the entire continent that he is the one behind the Empress. Everyone was extremely shocked. The fact that the Empress could stand on the Dragon King's head showed their relationship. As for the group of girls behind, the entire continent also knew that they were the Dragon King's women and younger sister. Greetings to the Dragon King and the Empress. Everyone knelt on the ground and shouted loudly. Stand up. Feng Luan swept her gaze across everyone in front of her and waved her hand slightly. Thank you, Empress. Everyone stood up and looked at Wangxian and Feng Luan with some respect. Wangxian naturally didn't have any objections to the group of girls standing on top of him. Needless to say, Xiao Yu was his sister. The group of girls had even become dragon knights last night, so he had no objections. As for Feng Luan, she would be here soon. I've gathered all the aristocratic families and sects on the continent to come here today. I have 2 things to announce. First, the Dragon Phoenix Empire will unify all the continents except the ocean. The entire world will become the territory of the Dragon Phoenix Empire. All the subjects of the Dragon Phoenix Empire will be on the territory. Everyone and all the forces must obey the rules of the Dragon Phoenix Empire. Feng Luan stood on the dragon's head, and her majestic voice resounded in everyone's mind. We will obey the Empress's orders. Everyone was not surprised by the first thing Feng Luan announced, and they immediately responded loudly. Second, the rules of the extraordinary continent in the future, which is also the laws of the Dragon Phoenix Empire. As Feng Luan spoke, her sharp eyes swept across all the experts and powerful forces in front of her. The Dragonman Empire has established a democratic system. Within the legal system, everyone is equal. All departments have been established. The new rules and order were announced, causing everyone's faces to reveal shock and astonishment. The higher-ups were under the supervision of the public and the supervision of other department. Anyone who violated the legal system would be severely punished, even if they were longevity expert. Law enforcement departments, supervision departments, and administrative departments were all set up in the city. The city lord was no longer able to control the sky with one hand, and once he made a mistake, he would still be punished. Even if he killed people in the wild, he would still be punished. One detailed system after another completely overturned the birth of the previous rules, and this made everyone slightly open their mouth. This kind of rule might not be a good thing for many experts, but for the entire continent, it was a great improvement in civilization. Feng Luan didn't care about the reactions of those experts and families. In front of her power, in front of the power of the Dragon Palace, these family forces could be destroyed with the snap of a finger. The birth of a new system meant that some people would benefit, and some people wouldn't benefit. However, in the future, it could raise the quality and strength of the extraordinary continent by a level. This reform was destined to leave a deep mark in the history of the extraordinary continent. Feng Luan's name was also destined to be immortal. Just as Feng Luan expected, when the new system that she announced was spread to every city on the extraordinary continent, it caused a huge sensation. Countless people cheered and jumped for joy. In an instant, the entire continent was singing the praises of the great empress. In an instant, the great empress's reputation even surpassed that of the Dragon King. When the new system was implemented, some people who resisted were killed with a snap of the fingers. When the new system was implemented, Wang Xian brought a group of girls and began to tour the entire supernatural continent. Their footsteps appeared in every corner of the supernatural continent. They also witnessed the new era of the supernatural continent, which was glorious and prosperous. Chapter 1813. 1813. In 1813, on Earth. In a blink of an eye, a year and a half had passed. In a year and a half, Wang Xian and the rest had traveled all over the transcendental continent. In this year and a half, the transcendental continent had undergone a huge change due to the laws and regulations of Feng Luan. In the ocean, there were also huge changes. The Dragon Gate of the Dragon Palace stood on top of the Sea of Dragons. All the demonic beasts and ferocious beasts in the entire transcendental continent could jump through the Dragon Gate. As long as they could jump through the Dragon Gate, they could become disciples of the Dragon Palace. After the news was spread, all the beasts of the Transcendence continent rushed into the Transcendence Sea. Every day, countless beasts wanted to jump through the Dragon Gate and become disciples of the Dragon Palace. Some beasts jumped through the Dragon Gate and reached the sky in one step, but some beasts didn't. They were bitter and unwilling. After a long time, countless beasts gathered around the Dragon Sea. A world of demonic beasts was formed at the bottom of the sea, and with the Dragon Palace as the center, the seabed became lively. The Dragon Palace's strength increased every day after obtaining the resources of the extraordinary continent. Wow, a year has passed so quickly. Outside the Dragon Palace, a group of girls stretched out their arms and looked around with smiles on their faces. Yeah, I feel like we haven't had enough fun yet. When are we going out again? Xiao Yu held onto Feng Lingtian's arm as if she wanted more. Around them, a group of demonic beasts saw them and immediately prostrated themselves respectfully. We've been playing for a year and a half. It's enough. Let's go. Wang Xian shook his head. Women were crazy when they started playing. They hadn't stopped for a whole year and a half. If Feng Luan hadn't informed them, they would have played for at least a few more months. I wonder what Sister Feng Luan has to do. She's been busy for a whole year and a half, but she hasn't finished. The girls said as they flew into the Dragon Palace. Sister Feng Luan, you've finished your work. When you're done, let's go out and play together. In the Dragon King Palace, a group of girls surrounded her and shouted at her with smiles on their faces. The new rules had just been released. Feng Luan needed to keep an eye on some things. It's settled. Feng Luan nodded with a smile. The main reason for coming this time is to find something. Let me show you. Xiao Xian, let's go to the peak of the Ao Tian mountain. As she spoke, she looked at Wang Xian. Huh? What did you find? Wang Xian revealed a curious expression. Some of the more magical things. Let's go over first. Prime Minister Gui is there too. Feng Luan said to Wang Xian. All right. Wang Xian nodded. It must be a big deal for Feng Luan to call them over directly. The group of them arrived above the Dragon Palace. In the past, there was a place in the Sea of Dragons where they could arrive at the Draconid Empire in an instant. In the past year or so, the Dragon Palace had broken through this kind of teleportation. Now, they could directly reach the peak of the Ao Tien Mountain from the Dragon Palace. Buzz. The group arrived at the array formation and instantly arrived above the peak of the Ao Tien Mountain. This way. Feng Luan flew in front and looked forward. Little Xian, when you were fighting the Dragon God once crashed into a peak of the Ao Tien Mountain. When we were dealing with it, we found an array formation at the bottom of the mountain peak of Ao Tien. It was a cultivation array formation and a teleportation array formation. As she spoke, a hint of seriousness appeared on her face. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. From the broken mountain peak of Ao Tien to the interior, a space filled with divine power appeared in his line of sight. The entire space had a circumference of about 100 kilometers. Wang Xian was a little curious as to why Emperor Aoshan and the rest didn't discover this place. There were 11 futons in the entire space. Beneath each futon, there was an extremely powerful spiritual energy. In the middle of the 11 futons, there were 11 gigantic images. The images were flickering with light as they floated in the air. They looked extremely mysterious. Prime Minister Gui was standing at the bottom of the images. He was waving the turtle shell in his hand as he continued to calculate. This is. Wang Xian looked at the image and his face was filled with surprise. Dragon King. Prime Minister Gui immediately bowed respectfully when he saw Wang Xian. What is this image? Wang Xian nodded his head and looked at the image in the sky curiously. Dragon King, if I'm not wrong, this should be the coordinates of the starry sky. We are currently on this planet. Prime Minister Gui had a contemplative look on his face as he spoke of the coordinates of the starry sky. The coordinates of the starry sky? Wang Xian was slightly taken aback as he stared intently at this picture. On the gigantic picture, the coordinates that represented the extraordinary continent were located in a remote corner. They were emitting a dim luster and could not be compared to the large coordinates at the center. This should be left behind by the ancient gods of the extraordinary continent. The gods of the extraordinary continent suddenly left hundreds of thousands of years ago. It should be the coordinates left behind by them. Feng Luan, who was at the side, guessed. The starry sky pattern and the starry sky coordinates. Wang Xian looked at the incomparably huge pattern. The Transcendence continent occupied less than 1/10,000 of it. He could not help but look pensive. Is there a teleportation formation here? Can the teleportation formation be used? No, it has been destroyed for a long time. Prime Minister Gui shook his head. The peak of the lofty heaven mountain is not only the center of the continent, but also the center of the spiritual energy of the continent. Cultivating on these 11 futons is several times more effective than cultivating in the Dragon Palace. If I can help with a large number of treasures, I can ignite the divine fire soon. Feng Luan glanced at the 11 futons, her eyes shining. But it requires 11 people to sit down and cultivate at the same time to affect the spiritual energy here. It's several times more powerful than the Dragon Palace. Is it that powerful? The group of girls looked surprised. Feng Luan nodded. However, this prayer mat can only be used for more than 10 years at most. After that, it will take some time before it can be used again. Do you want us to cultivate here? Wang Xian looked at Feng Luan. Yes. Feng Luan nodded. This is a huge opportunity for everyone. Even if it's you, little Xian, more than 10 years will allow you to advance by one level. I think there's no need for that. Shu Qing, you guys can cultivate here. Wang Xian shook his head and looked at the group of girls. That's great. However, we are prepared to bring Shu Qing Jenner to Earth to take a look. Guan Shu Qing, Lan Qingyu, and the rest were slightly hesitant. They had been in the extraordinary mainland for more than 11 years. They still had family on Earth. It was time to return. I'll return to Earth in a while. Bring them over. Wang Xian looked at them and said, that's fine too. The group of girls nodded. Currently, the Transcendence continent was like a backyard garden to them. It was also fine to bring their family over to stay for a period of time. The path of cultivation for the rest of the journey was also very important to them. Good, then you can cultivate here. I will accompany you here for a period of time and return to Earth to take a look. Chapter 1814. 1814. In 1814, under the Earth. The sudden appearance of the galactic coordinate pattern and the appearance of the powerful cultivation futon disrupted the plans of Wang Xian and the group of girls. After hesitating for a while, the group of girls decided to cultivate here and let Wang Xian bring their loved ones over. Time passed slowly and half a year passed in the blink of an eye. In the past half a year, Wang Xian accompanied the group of girls every day and occasionally flirted with Feng Luan. Twice, he was caught by the group of girls on the spot. However, they didn't say anything. This made Wang Xian more and more daring. Although he did not succeed in the end, he still enjoyed it. The speed of my cultivation here is indeed fast. As expected of the center of the entire continent, Wang Xian stood at the foot of the mountain peak of Ao Tian. Looking at the girls sitting cross-legged on the futons, he thought to himself. 11 futons, along with Xiao Yu and the 10 girls. The last position was where Feng Lingtian was cultivating. According to Feng Wan's guess, she would be able to ignite the divine fire within 2 years at most. As for the rest of the girls, with the support of powerful resources, they should be able to ignite the divine fire and condense the divine spark within 5 years. Wang Xian watched them cultivate in seclusion. After instructing Prime Minister Gui, he flew outside and looked at the flourishing world. Then, he arrived at the Dragon Palace in a flash. It's been 12 years. After returning to the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian thought to himself and opened the system notification record. Among the numerous system notifications, there was one that was very eye-catching. Ding! Earth's first-class Dragon Palace has been destroyed. All the members of the Dragon Palace have died. This was a message sent by the system when Wang Xian perished and fused with the heart of light and darkness. It had been several years since the information was sent. At that time, he was injured and had no time to deal with it when the vast region attacked the flowing sea region after his resurrection. Later on, Wang Xian did not bother about this piece of information. Compared to the supernatural continent, Earth was much weaker. Furthermore, there were too few resources on Earth. Hence, he did not pay too much attention to the destruction of the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace on Earth was a level 1 Dragon Palace. It was extremely weak to begin with, and there were only a dozen members of the Dragon Palace. However, even if it's a level 1 Dragon Palace, the members of the Dragon Palace are extremely weak. However, an ordinary person would definitely not dare to destroy my Dragon Palace. Did something big happen on Earth? Or, Wang Xian looked at the system notification and was curious. Let's go back and take a look. I want to know who dares to destroy my Dragon Palace. Wang Xian smiled. He was not bothered by the changes on Earth. With his strength, he was an invincible existence on Earth. When he left, the highest level on Earth had not even reached transcendence. It had only been more than 10 years. No matter how strong he was, he could not be that strong. Ao Jian, Ao Chitian. Wang Xian shouted softly. Your subordinate is here. Soon, 2 figures flew over quickly and knelt in front of him. Ao Jian, who held a sharp sword in his hand, and Ao Chitian, who held the ocean-pacifying divine needle in his hand. Ao Jian looked like a middle-aged swordsman. There was no emotion on his face as he coldly half-knelt on the ground. Ao Chitian had an incomparably tall and sturdy figure. He was about 2 meters tall and had a pair of 3 pairs of Goyu eyes. Ao Jian and Ao Chitian had already reached half-step level 9. Ao Jian's strength could be considered invincible under the divine realm. Ao Chitian, who had advanced to the wild dragon seed, could barely fight against a god who had ignited 2 wisps of godly fire. A true god who could kill a wisp of godly fire. Follow me to Earth. Wang Xian looked at the 2 of them and said indifferently. It's the Dragon King. The 2 of them nodded immediately. Let's go. The matters of the Dragon Palace had been handed over to Prime Minister Gui. The girls would be cultivating in seclusion for at least 1 to 2 years. Returning to Earth to visit his old friend. Wang Xian waved his arm and led Ao Jian and Ao Chitian to the flowing sea region. That was the entrance to Earth. With his rapid teleportation, Wang Xian still took a day to arrive at the flowing sea region from the center of the continent with the power that could kill 3 wisps of divine fire true gods. Arriving at the sea region that he was extremely familiar with, he smiled faintly. He still remembered that when he first entered this place, he had to flee when he encountered some powerful supernatural beast. Now, with his arrival, all the creatures in the entire aquatic race were worshipping him. It should be here. According to his memory, Wang Xian arrived at the surroundings of the entrance of Earth. The entrance of the cave had already been covered by seaweed. Buzz. With a wave of his arm, the familiar black hole appeared in front of him. He moved his body and stepped into it directly. However, before he came out, he realized that there was soil above him. The soil was at least 1,000 meters thick, which made him very surprised. With a move of his body, he broke out of the soil and appeared above him. An unfamiliar aura rushed over, causing Wang Xian to be stunned. He looked around and saw that there was still seawater around him. It was clear blue seawater. However, the depth of the water here had already reached about 15,000 meters. He clearly remembered that this place was only a few thousand meters back then. How did it suddenly become more than 10,000 meters now? Other than the change in the depth of the ocean, Wang Xian had a special feeling that the earth seemed to have become bigger. Faintly, he could feel a powerful force coming from all directions. The level of this force was not weaker than the dragon god. In fact, it was even stronger than the dragon god. What kind of huge change has happened on Earth? Wang Xian was slightly surprised. The god had actually appeared on Earth. He hesitated for a moment. Then, with a flash, he appeared in the sky. Beside him, Ao Chitian and Ao Jian accompanied him and flew tens of thousands of meters into the sky. The dragon eyes of the yin-yang and 5 elements were opened. Wang Xian's majestic dragon eyes swept across the entire planet. The Earth has changed. It is expanding at a slow speed. It must be due to the recovery of the spiritual energy. Furthermore, the Earth is actually moving. In other words, the Earth is roaming around. He looked up at the starry sky. A huge amount of spiritual energy filled an area of tens of millions of kilometers. The entire planet was under a certain force as it flew towards the unknown star field. In the east, a huge palace that was tens of thousands of kilometers long was standing in the void. That was the kingdom of God. In the west, a sacred mountain palace that was emitting a powerful light force was also standing in the void. That was the kingdom of God. At the center of the equator, there was an extremely huge flaming palace that was over 1,000 kilometers long. Flames were shooting up into the sky. That was the kingdom of God. At the bottom of the sea that was over 1,000 kilometers away, there was a palace that was over 1,000 kilometers long. The vast underwater palace was standing there. It was the kingdom of God. As for other places, Wang Xian couldn't see them. The gods are here. The world has changed. Wang Xian sensed the scenes on Earth and sighed in his heart. The Earth was wandering in the starry sky. The gods had descended to Earth. A mythical era had begun. Fortunately, the original citizens of Earth didn't suffer a catastrophe. Instead, they had the opportunity to become stronger. God has come, I have come back. Chapter 1815. 1815. The 1815 Dragon King was here. The god is here, and so am I. Wang Xian hovered in the void and muttered. He looked down at the entire Earth with a nostalgic expression on his face. This was his root and the place where he rose up. Even if the Earth was not as vast as the supernatural continent, he would still live on Earth in the future. Although the Earth was unfamiliar, it was still the same Earth. He slowly closed his eyes and spread his divine sense across the entire Earth. Vast and mighty power silently spread towards Earth. 9 familiar blood vessels were pulsating. Wang Xian remembered that they were the 9 dragon veins. Back then, when he injected the blood of the divine dragon into the dragon veins, the 9 dragon veins had already given birth to a will. Faint and familiar light spots appeared in his mind. Those were the blood vessels that he left behind, the dragon men. They were the former disciples of the Dragon Gate. Father, Father, I've broken through to the 5th level of body refining today. The headmaster said that I'm a genius, father. In the east, a little boy held a long sword in his hand and shouted excitedly at a middle-aged man, "Kid, why don't you take a look at whose bloodline you have? Why don't you take a look at what bloodline I have? That's..." A middle-aged man smiled and patted the little boy's head. At this moment, his body suddenly froze, and his eyes revealed a look of excitement and madness. Plop! Under the little boy's astonished gaze, the majestic and invincible father in his heart directly knelt on the ground. His eyes were bloodshot as he looked to the west, and his body trembled violently. "Dragon King, are you back?" As he spoke, tears flowed down his face, and his face was filled with extreme excitement. The leader didn't let 156 and the others take revenge. These guys insisted on going. If something happened to them, the leader would definitely be furious. This god who descended is too powerful. The sea god destroyed the dragon palace. We are not their match at all. We also don't know where the Dragon King is now. We want revenge too, but in front of the sea god, we are no different from ants. Oh right, 23's wife gave birth to a girl. Beside a small mountain, in a rural area, a few men sat beside a fish pond, talking in low voices. They were once the famous Dragon Gate on Earth. After the Dragon King disappeared and the Dragon Palace was destroyed, the leader of the Dragon Gate, Mo Qinglong, disbanded the Dragon Gate in order to prevent anyone from taking revenge on the Dragon Gate. Now, the disciples of the Dragon Gate gathered once a year, and some of the members had already gotten married and had children. While they were talking, their bodies froze slightly. They looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with excitement. Pu pu pu. Everyone immediately knelt on the ground, and their bodies trembled violently. Their king had returned. Not only here, in the luxurious villa, in the ordinary rooms, and in the ocean, there were 50 disciples of the Dragon Gate. In addition to those who had fallen, there were now more than 40 disciples. When they sensed the throbbing of their blood vessels, their faces revealed excitement and disbelief. Oh! The Dragon King has returned. But now, it may not be the world of the Dragon Palace and the Dragon Gate anymore. In a luxurious villa, a few elders of the Lan family saw Mo Qinglong kneeling on the ground in excitement. While their eyes were burning with passion, they heaved a sigh. The world had changed. Phew. All the images were transmitted to Wang Xian's mind, causing him to heave a sigh of relief. There was a sigh and a smile on his face. I didn't expect that after more than 10 years, some of the dragon men have children. Wang Xian revealed a happy smile on his face. He was no longer a teenager when he returned this time. All the Dragon Gate disciples already had children. When Wang Xian was preparing to enter the extraordinary mainland, he had basically dismissed the Dragon Gate and allowed them to develop freely. At the same time, he took care of Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue's family. Looking at the scenes in his mind, he sighed slightly. This is good too. Wang Xian smiled faintly and looked at the ocean ahead. There were 2 disciples of the Dragon Gate there. According to some vague information, they wanted to take revenge for the Dragon Palace. Revenge? Looks like the Dragon Palace was destroyed by them. Wang Xian looked at the kingdom of God below and revealed a faint sneer. Let's go and see what kind of force is it that dares to destroy our Dragon Palace. Wang Xian said to Ao Jian and Ao Chitian who was beside him. Then, he disappeared instantly. The Divine Sea Palace. It was one of the 5 major forces of the Dragon Palace. The Divine Sea Palace, the Soaring Heavens Treasured Palace, the Holy Church, the Fire God Palace, and the Pharaoh Palace were the 5 major forces that occupied Earth. Each of them was extremely powerful and had the legendary god overseeing them. Once the Divine Sea Palace descended, it took over the Earth's 5 lakes and 4 seas. With a casual blow from the sea god, the Dragon Palace vanished into thin air. Everyone saw how powerful the Divine Sea Palace was. After the 5 great factions and the 5 great gods descended on Earth, they immediately recruited disciples and spread the cultivation technique. The entire Earth began to develop rapidly. In addition, the spiritual energy had recovered, and the Earth had become larger. Some mountains and some places had shown signs of miracles, and everyone on Earth's strength had increased drastically. As the 5 strongest forces on Earth, everyone was proud to join them. Countless people worked hard to cultivate in order to have the chance to become gods. Every time the Divine Sea Palace recruited disciples, it would drive everyone crazy. However, not everyone had the right to do so. The 5 major forces had established academies all over the world. Only the disciples with great talent had the chance to join them. The 5 major forces did not only bring the Sea God, Emperor Lingxiao, the Fire God, the Holy Light God, and the Dharma God. They also brought billions of their subordinates. The Lingxiao Treasure Palace had the most people. The Lingxiao Treasure Palace alone had 100,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, and the rest of the disciples numbered in the tens of millions. The Spirit Sea Palace also had millions of disciples. Wang Xian came to the front of the Spirit Sea Palace and looked at the divine kingdom without any expression on his face. Thousands of young men and women were gathered in the surrounding area. All of them looked excited. Everyone looked up at the divine kingdom in front of them. Wang Xian appeared at the back and didn't attract anyone's attention. I wonder if I can join the Divine Sea Palace this time. The last time the Divine Sea Palace recruited disciples, there were 5,000 of them. Only 100 of them went in. I was eliminated last time. This time, there are quite a number of talented disciples who should be able to enter the Spirit Sea Palace. I'm sure Seaman Hai will be able to join. His current strength is too strong. He must have mastered a few abhinas by now. At this moment, voices of discussion could be heard from the front. Wang Xian stood there and swept his gaze across all the young men around him. His eyes were sparkling. All the young men here had reached the Transcendence Realm. Furthermore, they were all at the 5th or 6th level of the Transcendence Realm. This shocked him slightly. The speed at which the people on Earth were improving was too fast. Chapter 1816. 1816. In 1816, the world did not recognize the monarch. The Transcendence Realm could be considered a deity on Earth more than 10 years ago. However, the group of young people had already reached the Transcendence Realm. This made Wang Xian very surprised. According to the normal cultivation speed, it was very difficult to reach the Transcendence Realm even with the current heaven and earth spiritual energy. It seems that the recovery of spiritual energy is not only an opportunity for humans, but also for Earth. Wang Xian thought about the expansion of Earth and the arrival of extraterrestrial gods. He had some guesses in his heart. The legend of the divine dragon and the legends of the gods on Earth might not have been fabricated. During the ancient times, there might have been powerful gods and religions on Earth. Perhaps for some reason, the Earth had declined, and those heaven-defying religions had left. The recovery of spiritual energy might have attracted the attention of those true gods of religions. They would descend on Earth and bring the Earth to their region. The reason why the humans on Earth could rise so quickly was probably because of the recovery of Earth. Some spiritual objects had also recovered. Everyone, take out your identity cards and enter the Spirit Sea Palace one by one. At this moment, a voice came from the front. Everyone immediately walked towards the majestic Spirit Sea Palace. They looked at the middle-aged man with a human body and a fish tail who was holding a trident in his hand with reverence. They looked at the yearning expression on the face of the Spirit Sea Palace and walked in respectfully. Wang Xian watched the people in front enter and followed closely behind. Stop. Take out your identity cards. Just as Wang Xian walked to the entrance, a cold voice was heard. I'm here to look for someone. Wang Xian looked at the guard beside him indifferently. He had a fish tail and a human body. He had fish gills and a sharp mouth. Clearly, he was not a creature from Earth. Please come in. When the mermaid guard saw Wang Xian's gaze, his body trembled slightly and he said respectfully. The group of young men and women in front did not notice this scene. Wang Xian continued to walk in with Ao Jian and Ao Chitian. When he entered, Wang Xian immediately sensed the powerful spiritual energy from the divine kingdom. The water energy contained in it was comparable to the spiritual energy in an ordinary place in the Dragon Palace. There were mermaids roaming around the surroundings. There were all kinds of aquatic creatures. Even the gigantic blue whale had 2 in front of it. Other than the mermaids, there were also quite a number of normal humans. The entire Divine Sea Palace was extremely dreamy and beautiful. Oh my God, This place is simply too beautiful. It would be great if I could cultivate here. There's the Lingxiao treasured palace above and the sea god palace below. Only a god can build such a holy place. In the front, a group of young men and women looked around in shock and sighed. The test field is in front. If you pass the test, you can become a disciple of the sea god palace. Work hard. At the front, a middle-aged man said proudly to them, "Yes, sir." The group of young men and women immediately nodded in response. After walking for more than 10 minutes, a huge training field appeared in everyone's sight. At this moment, there were 7,000 to 8,000 disciples cultivating in the training field. At the front, there were more than 10 middle-aged young men standing in a row. Their eyes were filled with dignity as they swept their gaze over. Wang Xian's gaze swept across the dozen of middle-aged young men and realized that all of them were at the profound void tier. Although they were not very strong among the profound void tier, their strength was invincible on earth in the past. When the thousands of disciples who were cultivating around them saw their arrival, they also looked over curiously with a proud look on their faces. "These dozen of them are your instructors for the assessment. They said that only those who are qualified to join the Spirit Sea Palace are qualified to join." The middle-aged man saw the 10-odd young men standing in a row, cupped his hands, and shouted at all the young men and women behind him. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts, and they looked at the 10-odd young men in awe. "Kneel and worship." At that moment, a young man among the 10-odd people raised his head slightly and took a step forward. With his hands behind his back, he swept his gaze across all the people in front of him and shouted arrogantly, "Greetings, teacher." Everyone did not dare to hesitate in the slightest. They directly knelt on one knee on the ground and shouted loudly, "Yes, yes." The young teacher nodded his head in satisfaction. However, he quickly raised his eyebrows slightly and his gaze landed on the 3 people at the back. One of the 2 people was like a demonic beast. They stood there and looked at their surroundings indifferently as though they did not hear his words. The other 10 or so middle-aged youths also looked over and raised their eyebrows slightly. "What's going on?" The group of young men and women who were kneeling on the ground were also slightly shocked. Some of them turned their heads slightly to look behind them. "Hurry up and kneel. If you anger the teachers, you won't even know how you died." A young man growled at them in a low voice. "Who are the 3 of you? What are you doing in our sea god palace?" The young mentor took a few steps forward again and questioned Wang Xian and the rest with a cold gaze. "I'm here to look for someone. 8 years ago, someone destroyed my underwater palace and killed my disciples. I'm here to seek an explanation." Wang Xian looked at the young mentor and said, "I'm here to take a look and see how this matter should be handled." As he spoke with a calm expression, he looked in the direction of the group of disciples who were cultivating. There were 2 familiar bloodlines there. If his guess was correct, they were Mo 15 and Mo 16, the 2 disciples of the Dragon Gate. "What?" Wang Xian's words stunned the young mentor slightly. His face was filled with astonishment and doubt. Everyone around was also slightly stunned. What was this fellow doing here? What underwater palace? "Kid, how did you sneak in? How dare you barge into our divine sea palace? I think you are courting death. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Those who barge into our divine sea palace without permission shall die." The young mentor narrowed his eyes slightly. With a move of his palm, waves of water condensed into long spears. "Junior brother, it's meaningless to kill them directly. Since they dare to sneak into our sea god palace, they must have some strength. Mortals who have come to participate in the assessment, your first assessment mission begins now. Kill the 3 of them. The 3 people who have killed them will join our sea god palace directly. The rest will continue the assessment." Just as the young man made his move, a middle-aged man in the center waved his hand indifferently and said to all the young men who were participating in the assessment, Then we'll listen to senior brother." The young mentor smiled and nodded immediately. He glanced at all the young men and women who were kneeling in front of him indifferently. "If we kill them, we can join the Spirit Sea Palace directly." The eyes of all the young men and women who were kneeling on the ground reflected light as a hint of excitement flashed across their eyes. "Their dog lives are mine. An elegant young man dressed in sky blue attire and holding a blue long sword stood up immediately and turned around with a face full of confidence. Hualala. The rest of the young men and women also stood up immediately. Their eyes were sparkling as they stared at Wang Xian and the other two. It has been more than 12 years since we parted. The world no longer recognizes you. Chapter 1817. 1817. In 1817, the world did not recognize him. After more than 12 years of separation, the world no longer recognized him. Wang Xian looked at the group of middle-aged men from the Divine Sea Palace in front of him with a mocking expression. Looking at the group of young men who took out their weapons and were about to make a move, he shook his head slightly. Once upon a time, in the entire earth, who dared to say that they wanted to kill him? Who dared to look at him with such disrespect? There was a time when everyone in the world stood in front of him. Which one of them didn't bow and kowtow respectfully? But this is what makes it interesting. Wang Xian looked at everyone in front of him. His eyes were shining. He was worrying about how he should develop in the future. Now was the perfect time. Let's have a battle with the gods and the expert from the starry sky. Ants. Ao Jian saw that the people in front of him were actually about to attack them. A gleam of sword radiance flashed across his indifferent eyes. What happened? Are there ants that dare to cause trouble in our Divine Sea Palace? It seems like someone has sneaked in. Furthermore, they are a little arrogant. They are looking for death. What happened here attracted the attention of the people in the surroundings. Some of them looked over curiously. Their faces were filled with mockery. The 5 major factions on Earth were the difference between mortals and gods to everyone. To dare to cause trouble here was simply courting death. This was the first time they saw someone dare to sneak into the Spirit Sea Palace. However, at this very moment, at the front of the training ground, 2 middle-aged men looked over. When they saw Wang Xian, their bodies stiffened slightly. This. The two of them looked at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Their eyes were fixed on Wang Xian's figure. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Not long ago, the two of them had already sensed the arrival of the Dragon King. Furthermore, the two of them had sneaked into the Spirit Sea Palace to seek revenge for the Dragon Palace. The moment they sensed the Dragon King again, they were already prepared to leave this place to look for the Dragon King. In the end, they did not expect the Dragon King to actually come. He came to the Divine Sea Palace, which possessed invincible strength. Oh no! Seeing that the Dragon King was surrounded by a group of young men, the two of them looked at each other with a crazy killing intent on their faces. Haha, I'll take their lives first. In front of Wang Xian, the eyes of 5,000 young men slowly revealed killing intent. One of the burly young men held a large saber in his hand and attacked Wang Xian directly. Kill. The rest of the young men rushed over with excitement in their eyes. Killing intent filled the air. When Ao Jian saw this scene, he slowly raised his palm. He did not even pull out the sword in his hand. Die. However, just as Ao Jian was about to make his move, 2 voices filled with killing intent were heard. Following that, 2 figures revealed a violent aura on their faces. They were charging towards the 5,000 young men with killing intent. What? The powerful aura that was suddenly transmitted caused the 5,000 young men to be slightly startled. However, a miserable cry was quickly emitted. 156. The sudden attack of the 2 figures caused the over 10 middle-aged young instructors to be slightly startled. Their expressions changed slightly. 156. What are you all doing? Stop. A middle-aged man took a step forward and shouted at them. A bunch of people who are looking for death. Get lost. However, 156 didn't pay attention to him. The power of a level 9 transcendent charged to the front. Dozens of young men and women died under their hands. The disciples of the Divine Sea Palace suddenly attacked and killed them. This made the young men and women who came to take the test look frightened. Sirs, you. They retreated backward in horror. They looked at the 2 middle-aged men who had suddenly charged over in shock. Dragon King, please leave. The faces of the 156 men changed as they rushed to the side of Wang Xian and the rest. They roared in a low voice. There was excitement, worry, and fear on their faces. The two brothers had joined the Divine Sea Palace behind their leader's back because they wanted to avenge the Dragon Palace in the future. However, only after they joined did they realize how terrifying the Divine Sea Palace was. They were gods. The Dragon Gate and even the Dragon Palace could not fight against them in the past. Clap, clap. Wang Xian looked at the loyal Draconids and patted their shoulders gently. Although a large part of their loyalty was due to their bloodlines, he was still very impressed that Mo-15 and Mo-16 could achieve such a feat. Dragon King? When the people of the Divine Sea Palace saw the abnormal behavior of the two people, they were full of surprise when they suddenly came to the three people and said something. Dragon King? Who was it? Why did 156 do such a thing? The two of them were outstanding existences in the same level of the Divine Sea Palace, and they were highly valued by many people. And now, because of these three strangers, they killed a group of disciples who came to take the test and addressed each other respectfully as Dragon King. 156. Who are they? Who are you people? The young mentor glanced at the corpses on the ground and stared at the two of them with a cold expression. Dragon King, the strength of the Spirit Sea Palace is not something we can contend with. Leave quickly, we will help you stop them. Devil 15 and Devil 16 still ignored the young man and spoke to Wang Xian anxiously once again. Both of you should live a good life. Wang Xian looked at the two of them and said calmly, 156, I think both of you are courting death. When the young mentor of the Spirit Sea Palace saw that the two of them still ignored him, his eyes were filled with killing intent. He moved his body and stretched out his claw. An incomparably huge claw materialized and clawed at them. Stand aside. Wang Xian ordered when he saw Devil number 15 and Devil number 16, whose expressions had changed drastically. He looked at the young man and slowly swept his gaze across everyone around him. Clang. As his gaze swept past them, the sound of a sharp sword could be heard from the side. The sword was not unsheathed and Ao Jian merely raised his arm gently. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. The bodies of the 5,000 young men and women in front of them, as well as the young mentor who was attacking them, froze instantly. Bang, 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 bang. Without a sound or a scream, bodies fell to the ground one after another. With a wave of his hand, all 5,000 to 6,000 people died. Ao Jian was cold-blooded. He cultivated the path of ruthlessness without any feelings. He only knew that anyone who offended a Dragon King would die, even if they were innocent. The Dragon Guards had no feelings, only ruthlessness, and only the Dragon King. Hiss. The sudden death of thousands of people caused everyone in the surrounding Divine Sea Palace to suck in a breath of cold air. The pupils of the more than 10 teachers standing at the front shrunk slightly as they looked at Ao Jian in shock. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Wang Xian. 12 years ago, I was called the Dragon King here. Once, the underwater dragon palace that you destroyed was my palace. Wang Xian saw their shocked look and introduced himself to them indifferently. Chapter 1818. 1818. The 1818 world did not recognize him. Dragon King? Wang Xian's voice reverberated in the surroundings. Everyone could hear him clearly. His voice was filled with calmness and calmness. However, under the contrast of the thousands of corpses around them, one could not help but feel a chill in their heart. His words made the young men of the Divine Sea Palace look puzzled. Dragon King? Dragon King, you are the Dragon King? You are the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. All of a sudden, an exclamation came from the back. A middle-aged man stared at Wang Xian with his eyes wide open. His eyes were filled with shock. Although it had been more than 10 years and the world no longer recognized him, the word Dragon King still represented an era that was shrouded by the Dragon King. Some of the middle-aged men still knew the era of the recovery of spiritual energy, the name of the Dragon King, and the power of the Dragon King. The Dragon King? The Dragon King from more than 10 years ago. The Invincible Dragon King from more than 10 years ago on Earth. The middle-aged man's exclamation seemed to stir up some memories, and more people showed surprised expressions. Woo woo woo. When some people recalled, a rapid sound of a conch resounded throughout the entire Spirit Sea Palace. For the first time, the rapid sound of a conch came from the Sea God Palace, and it was also the first time that someone dared to cause trouble in the Dragon Palace. And the troublemaker was that Dragon King. Dragon King? What Dragon King? Is it that Lord Sea God who came to destroy the trashy Dragon Palace with a casual blow? At this moment, the middle-aged man among the dozen or so instructors looked at the group of people who had been killed in an instant with an embarrassed expression and roared in a low voice. A Dragon King who is as small as an ant dares to kill people in our divine sea palace. As he spoke, he scanned his surroundings and saw the Sea God Palace disciples flying over. He felt confident. That terrifying attack just now had terrified him. The middle-aged swordsman who had attacked just now was much stronger than him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, more than 10,000 figures quickly swam over. There were mermaids with tridents and humans with horns on their heads. Each of them was emitting a terrifying aura as they flew over. The hurried sound of conch shells from the Spirit Sea Palace indicated that there was an enemy invasion. Ever since they descended to Earth, no one had dared to invade the Spirit Sea Palace. What happened? At this moment, a young voice sounded. A young man and a woman were standing in front of two blue-armored, ferocious-looking aquatic creatures. They were swimming toward them. Behind the young man and the woman were more than a dozen middle-aged men in full armor and holding long spears. Their sharp eyes swept over, full of dignity. Your Highness, the Divine Sun. Your Highness, the Goddess. More than a dozen instructors and a group of disciples of the Divine Sea Palace who were cultivating hurriedly knelt down and shouted at the young man and the lady. The young man was dressed in sky-blue soft armor and had a towering head. He looked extremely handsome. The lady was dressed in the same sky-blue color. On top of her clothes were gemstones that were emitting powerful energy. She was extremely beautiful. The children of the Sea God Palace. Who dares to kill people in our divine sea palace? The Crown Prince's gaze swept across the corpses on the ground. A cold glint shot out from his eyes as his gaze landed on Wang Xian and the rest in the middle. Son of deity, he calls himself the Dragon King. He should be the master of the Dragon Palace that the Sea God casually destroyed when our divine sea palace descended. He came and killed all of our assessment members and one of our disciples. The middle-aged mentor immediately reported respectfully to the Crown Prince of the Divine Sea Palace. The arrival of the experts from the Divine Sea Palace made him slightly relieved. Dragon King? The Dragon King who ruled this world before we descended. According to our estimations, his strength at that time was at most at the extraordinary realm. Why is he here to take revenge now? The goddess beside him looked at Wang Xian curiously and asked in puzzlement. It's Her Highness, the goddess. It's that Dragon King. He was the overlord of our Earth more than 10 years ago, the master of the Dragon Palace. A middle-aged man who knew the situation immediately reported to the princess. He looked at Wang Xian with a complicated expression. He was once the overlord of Earth. Unfortunately, the Earth had changed. Now, it was the world of the gods. It was the world of the 5 major forces. Goddess, this is indeed the former Dragon King of Earth. I've seen him before. There are no changes compared to more than 10 years ago. After the middle-aged man finished speaking, an old man dressed in luxurious clothes came close to the group of people who followed the Crown Prince and Princess. He reported to them in a low voice. What Dragon Palace? What Dragon King? He is just an ant in front of our Divine Sea Palace. He dares to kill people in our Divine Sea Palace. Capture him and send him into the ice region. Let him enjoy the bitter cold of the ice region. The son of deity looked at Wang Xian and didn't put him in his eyes at all. He waved his hand and ordered. It's the son of deity. A merman with a trident in his hand bowed and responded. He gestured to his subordinates beside him. Sir Guard, be careful. That middle-aged swordsman is very strong. The middle-aged man who had just started reminded him immediately. He, even if the other forces of the Divine Kingdom come to our Divine Sea Palace to cause trouble, they can forget about leaving. The leader of the patrol guards who was holding the trident smiled confidently. This was the Divine Kingdom of Lord Sea God. It was their territory. Buzz. Kneel down and bow your heads, or we will chop off your limbs. More than a dozen patrol guards swam over and shouted at Wang Xian and the rest coldly. I didn't expect the Dragon King to be alive. However, he is too irrational. He actually dared to barge into the Sea God Palace. Times have changed. The ice region is a place where the sinners of the Sea God Palace are imprisoned. Once they are imprisoned, their lives would be worse than death. Whispers could be heard. Most of the people in the training grounds were natives of Earth. Seeing the sudden appearance of the Dragon King, they were both shocked and slightly sighed. This time, the Dragon King might have been completely defeated. However, the Dragon King was already an outdated person on Earth. Compared to the current generation of divine sons and goddesses, he was nothing compared to the proud sons of heaven who wanted to ascend to the divine throne. Even if the outside world knew that the Dragon King had returned and was killed by the divine sea palace, they would not be too shocked. Where is your sea god? 8 years ago, he destroyed the Dragon Palace and killed the disciples of my Dragon Palace. Ask him to give me an explanation. Wang Xian glanced at the tens of thousands of disciples of the divine sea palace around him indifferently. He landed on the divine son and goddess and spoke calmly. Our sea god is not something that an ant like you can see. When the dozen or so guards heard Wang Xian's words, a cold glint appeared in their eyes. The trident in their hands attacked the limbs of Wang Xian and the rest. Then I shall wait. Wang Xian shook his head slowly. Heartless sword desolation, rampage in all directions. Ao Jian's cold voice rang out. He unsheathed the sharp sword in his hand. Countless sword rays instantly attacked the surroundings. The attack of a half-step godly state was unleashed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. When the countless golden sword rays were unsheathed, the entire divine sea palace trembled. Not good, his very strong. The expressions of the divine sons and goddesses, as well as the dozen or so experts behind them, changed drastically. Chapter 1819. 1819. The 1819 god's death and the world's wailing shocked the world. Demigod's strength, and it's at the peak of the demigod realm. When Ao Jian's heartless sword was unsheathed and the sword rays attacked the surroundings, everyone's expressions change. Especially the divine sons and divine daughters. As the children of the sea god, their own strength had already reached the longevity realm, which was the demigod realm. When they felt Ao Jian's attack, their expressions changed drastically. Be careful, sons and daughters. Behind them, more than a dozen other demigod experts instantly arrived in front of them. Each of them had a mysterious water shield in front of them to block the attack. They looked at the horrifying sword light with shock in their eyes. Be careful. Be careful. His strength is so terrifying. The expressions of the surrounding disciples of the divine sea palace changed drastically. More than a dozen guards who were in the lead showed despair in their eyes. They could feel the destructive attacks from the sharp swords. Pu, 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 pu. The piercing sounds rang out as the sharp sword rays pierced through the tens of thousands of experts from the surrounding divine sea palace. Peng, peng, peng. Not good, the attack power is too strong. In front of the divine sons and goddesses, the expressions of the dozen or so demigod experts changed drastically when they saw the sharp swords landing on their water shield. Their defenses were like a layer of paper in front of the sharp swords. They were not on the same level at all. No. The 5 or 6 demigods of the divine sea palace who were standing at the very front let out terrified roars when they saw the sharp swords coming toward them. Pu, pu, pu. Sea god sky screen. The divine sons standing at the back widened their eyes. Their eyes were filled with shock. He placed his hands on his chest, and a blue screen of light completely surrounded them. Bang, bang, bang. The sharp sword landed on it, making a dull, loud sound. The goddess face instantly turned extremely pale. She looked at the tens of thousands of corpses in front of her and around her in a daze. How is this possible? The divine son's expression changed as he stared at Ao Jian and growled in a low voice. This. Around them, the people in the cultivation field who had not been attacked revealed expressions of shock. They watched this scene in disbelief, staring blankly at the guards of the divine sea palace. There were more than 10,000 guards, more than 10,000 experts, and every guard had reached the insightful void realm. But now, they were all killed in one move by the swordsman beside the Dragon King. There were more than 10,000 insightful Void Realm experts, and each of them was an existence they had to look up to. Even the demigod who had followed the divine son and goddess was killed directly. This was a demigod, an invincible demigod who could turn the clouds and rain upside down. "Father, save me." Immediately after, the divine son's terrified voice resounded throughout the entire divine sea palace, causing the expressions of all living beings in the palace to change drastically. The son of deity was actually calling for help here. All the experts of the divine sea palace immediately flew over. The swordsman beside the Dragon King is so powerful. How can he be so powerful? How is this possible? He killed more than 10,000 experts of the divine sea palace in one move. Just how powerful are the Dragon King and the others? Oh my God, has the former Dragon King returned? Shocked voices came from the training ground. Those middle-aged men who had gone through the era of the Dragon King were shocked. Those young men who had not gone through the era of the Dragon King were also dumbfounded. The legendary Dragon King was so terrifying now. At this moment, in the deepest part of the divine sea palace, there was a depression there. The whole depression was emitting a mysterious light. A burly middle-aged man was sitting in the center with his legs crossed. When he heard the voice coming from the divine sea palace, he slowly opened his eyes. The entire scene in the divine sea palace appeared in his mind. As the divine sea palace, he was the ruler here. When the scene in the outer cultivation field appeared in his mind, a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Wang. At this moment, the entire divine sea palace let out a soundless roar. A terrifying pressure appeared in the sky above the cultivation field. The vast and mighty power seemed to have taken over the entire world. Out of thin air, a burly middle-aged man appeared in front of the divine sons and goddesses. Bang! A burly middle-aged man with sky-blue pupils stood in the sky. The burly middle-aged man was 2 meters tall. On the empty ground beside him, a 3-meter-wide trident that was emitting divine light appeared out of thin air. The burly middle-aged man held the trident and looked down at Wang Xian and the rest from above. "Father! Father! Sea God!" When the divine sons and goddesses saw their father appear, they were pleasantly surprised. Around them, the disciples of the divine sea palace immediately knelt on the ground and bowed to the sea god. "Which faction is it?" The burly sea god stared at Wang Xian and the rest. The blue light had locked onto them completely. Sensing his strength, his eyes were filled with coldness. The entire sea god palace was emitting an extremely oppressive aura. Boom! Crash! Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew in the surrounding sea area of the sea god palace. The waves rose to a height of over 1,000 meters. The waves within a radius of a few thousand kilometers howled violently even though there was no wind. What's going on? What happened in the ocean? What a huge wave! Oh no, evacuate immediately. What's going on? Is the sea god angry? In the coastal area, as well as some ships on the ocean, when they saw the huge wave that was suddenly raised, they were all shocked. Only the sea god's anger could raise such a terrifying wave. Many experts also looked toward the ocean in astonishment, their hearts filled with astonishment. The entire ocean was surging. In the divine sea palace, everyone could feel the mighty power of the sea god. Dragon Palace, Dragon King. Wang Xian saw the sea god appearing in front of him and replied indifferently. "The Dragon King from the Dragon Palace on Earth?" The sea god stared at Wang Xian expressionlessly and continued to ask. "That's right. I'm here to seek an explanation for the destruction of my Dragon Palace." Wang Xian nodded his head lightly and questioned. This. All the disciples of the divine sea palace around them were shocked when they saw the Dragon King facing their sea god nonchalantly. Where did the Dragon King get his confidence from? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. While the sea god was conversing with Wang Xian, millions of creatures from the entire divine sea palace had gathered. Among them, there were mermaids and humans. Their bodies were emitting a terrifying power. "Lord Sea God, please calm down. Let's kill these reckless fools." 5 old men who were emitting a terrifying aura took a step forward and spoke to the sea god. "Father, that middle-aged swordsman has the strength of a peak demigod. The son of deity pointed at Aogen and spoke with a slight fear in his heart. A bunch of fellows who didn't ignite the divine fire dare to barge into my god's kingdom? The sea god stared at Wang Xian and the rest with disdain as he spoke coldly. If you don't give me a reply regarding the destruction of the Dragon Palace, I will have to settle it in my own way. Wang Xian saw that the sea god didn't reply to him and reminded him calmly. Chapter 1820. 1820 God died. The world was in a state of shock. Ha ha ha, let our divine sea palace give you an explanation. Let our sea god give you an explanation. You dare to kill people in our divine sea palace. All of you are destined to die here. What Dragon King of the Dragon Palace? Die. Faced with Wang Xian's final reminder, the sea god stood in the sky above the divine sea palace and stared at them coldly. His eyes were filled with coldness and disdain. The 5 old men who were walking over were filled with rage and murderous intent as they roared. As soon as they finished their words, 3 of them started to move. There were 2 mermaids. One of them was a human. The mermaids were holding a trident while the other old man was holding a spear. The 3 of them waved their hands in front of them. Boom, boom, boom. 3 streams of water that were 10 meters thick attacked Wang Xian and the rest directly. As soon as he finished speaking, he was killed. On Earth, those in the realm of longevity were known as demigods. As for the 3 of them, they were all at the peak of the demigod realm and were only 1 step away from the divine level. They did not put them in their eyes when they faced the 3 fellows who did not ignite the divine fire. Very good. Since you guys destroyed my dragon palace back then, I shall destroy your divine sea palace today. Wang Xian's expression did not change at all when he saw the 3 attacks. Clang, 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 clang. Aogen, who was standing at the side, pointed his long sword. 6 intersecting metal swords met the 3 attacks head-on. Bang! A violent collision sounded. Aogen stood proudly in front of them and easily blocked the 3 attacks. Ha! Aogen's strength stunned the 3 peak-stage demigod powerhouses who were attacking him. Their faces revealed a look of surprise and their expressions became solemn. Father, it's that middle-aged swordsman. Their strength is terrifying. They killed more than 10,000 guards of our divine sea palace in one move. Seeing that the attacks of the 3 peak-stage demigod experts of their divine sea palace had been blocked, the divine son and goddess said with an embarrassed expression. If he hadn't taken out the defensive weapon that his father had given him, he would have been killed by that attack. They are still ants if they haven't ignited the divine fire. Even if they have ignited the divine fire and entered my god kingdom, they will still die. The sea god didn't show any sign that Aogen could withstand his subordinates' attacks. Chop off their limbs and suppress the ice domain until they die. Anyone who dares to kill my god sea palace's disciples and anyone related to them will be suppressed. The sea god judged indifferently and slowly raised his head. He stood high above and judged the sins of the human world. Boom! An extremely terrifying divine power pressed toward Wang Xian and the rest. Yes. The 5 powerhouses at the peak of the demigod realm cupped their hands. With the suppression of the divine kingdom, it was easy for them to cut off the limbs of the other party. This Dragon King appeared out of nowhere and actually has such a powerful subordinate. However, he dares to barge into Father's divine kingdom without lighting the divine fire. What a fool. Seeing her father getting angry, the goddess stared coldly at Wang Xian and the other 2. The Dragon King is done for. Lord Sea God said that they didn't even become gods without igniting the divine flame. Furthermore, they are in Lord Sea God's divine kingdom. This is simply courting death. Back then, the Dragon King fought his way here undefeated. Now, things are different from the past. He actually dared to barge into our divine sea palace. His courting death. The Dragon King's power is indeed terrifying, but he's too confident. Hehe, it's good that he's dead. At the training ground, everyone watched this scene with indifference and even some schadenfreude. The Dragon King's power surprised them greatly. However, they were disciples of the divine sea palace after all. If the Dragon King came to cause trouble, he would be their enemy. Now that he was killed, they were happy to see it. A true god who only lit a wisp of divine fire dares to be so high and mighty. Wang Xian looked at the sea god who was looking down at them and smiled contemptuously. Bang! When Wang Xian finished his words, a heavy collision sound was heard. Boom! 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 Following that, the entire Divine Sea Palace trembled. Cracks slowly appeared on the ground of the Divine Kingdom. What? The tremor of the Divine Kingdom and the collapse of the ground of the Divine Kingdom caused everyone's expressions to change drastically. The high and mighty sea god lost his calmness from before. His pupils contracted slightly as he looked at Ao Chitian beside him. The three-colored Goyu's pupils flickered with violent power. Flames, lightning, and demonic chi churned on his body. A golden cudgel weapon appeared in his hand. The cudgel landed on the Divine Kingdom, and the cracks spread to the surrounding areas. No one dares to stand high in front of our Dragon King. If there is one, let him be turned into ashes. A violent voice came out of Ao Chitian's mouth. His three Goyu eyes stared at the sea god and slowly landed on the 5 peak stage demigod powerhouses who were rushing toward them. Buzz! The three Goyu began to spin in his eyes, and a violent energy burst out of his eyes. Boom! 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 In an instant, a violent explosion sounded from all directions. No, what kind of power is this? The 5 peak stage demigod experts who rushed over felt that their bodies were actually slowly splitting apart. Their faces revealed a terrified expression as they shouted loudly. They could only watch as their bodies split apart, and their expressions were filled with terror. Bang! A violent explosion came from their bodies. In an instant, the 5 peak stage demigod experts were annihilated. Not only them, but the surrounding buildings also exploded. Without any warning, no one saw Ao Chitian's attack. Rumble. The destruction of the Divine Kingdom caused the entire Divine Sea Palace to roar, and the surrounding sea area was even more violent. How dare a tiny wisp of divine fire god act so arrogantly in front of our Dragon King? Roar. A loud explosion exploded, and the 5 peak stage demigod experts were reduced to ashes. Everyone's faces were filled with shock and horror. However, at this moment, a violent voice once again resounded throughout the entire Divine Sea Palace. Ao Chitian held the ocean-pacifying divine needle in his hand, and his body slowly grew to the size of 20 meters. His incomparably violent aura broke through the restraints of the Divine Kingdom. The Divine Sea Palace's suppression on him had become a complete joke. Today, the god dies. Ao Chitian's incomparably tyrannical eyes stared at the sea god, and his body moved, instantly appearing in front of the sea god. How is this possible? You clearly didn't ignite the divine fire. How could you have such terrifying strength? At this moment, seeing the collapse of the Divine Kingdom, a look of shock and fear appeared in Sea God's eyes, and he shouted in disbelief. He raised the trident in his hand and raised it horizontally to block the position in front of him. Bang! An incomparably loud collision sound was heard, and the violent power and violent attributes caused Sea God's expression to change drastically. His body was like an ant in front of Ao Chitian, and he directly fell toward the position below. Boom! The Sea God's huge body sank into the bottom of the sea. With just one strike, the Sea God, who was known as Invincible on Earth, fell into the bottom of the sea.